Well, good evening, Hayden, Idaho. It is Tuesday, March the 12th, and I'm calling to order our Hayden City Hall, our Hayden City Council meeting. May we get a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes. All right, seems like we're here. Would you join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance? Abby, would you lead us? Please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball. All right, are there any additions or corrections to our agenda tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I have one item from the consent calendar that I would like to have removed to be discussed later. It's item 2B, the February 27th City Council meeting minutes. I feel there's an inaccuracy in there that needs to be discussed.
Would you like to make a motion then?
I did, I move.
You move?
Yes.
Fair enough. Is there a second?
I second it because I'd like to hear what she has to say.
There's a second. I assume we need a roll call vote, yeah?
Councilmember DePriest?
Sure.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
So moved. Any other additions or corrections tonight?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I also have a proposed amendment to the city council meetings, item 2B of the consent calendar.
Okay, and that is?
I'm sorry.
It was just removed from consent for a separate action item after consent.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry for being out of order.
It's all right. It's all good.
Okay, so just remind me when it comes up again.
So just for clarity's sake, staff, does it go under 6C or where are we going to put this thing?
I would just do consent and then take it as its own action item immediately after consent.
All right, I will do that. All right, if there are no other additions or corrections, our first item on our agenda is a proclamation for the 2024 Arbor Day. The 2024 Arbor Day proclamation is an important document every year. It's necessary to help with possible grant funding for the Arbor Day event and is also required for the Tree City USA certification for Hayden. So I'm going to just proclaim as mayor of the city and the Hayden City Council, I hereby proclaim Thursday, May 16th, 2024 as Arbor Day in the city of Hayden. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. All right, off to the consent calendar we go. The consent calendar tonight consists of approval of February 27th, 2024 special city council meeting minutes, approval of Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board and Wastewater Treatment Plant Facility upgrades payment request, approval of Rock Haven Storage LLC deferred improvement agreement, approval of property use agreement for Hayden Meadows Elementary Pedestrian Route Project with John R. Miller, approval of property use agreement for Hayden Meadows Elementary Pedestrian Route Project with Ben and Sandra Rolfe, approval of property use agreement for the Hayden Meadows Elementary Pedestrian Route Project with Hilken Family Trust, approval of the street striping contract with Stripe Right Incorporated, approval of the electrical service agreement with Avista Utilities for the Crawford Park expansion project, approval of 2024 Prairie Cardinals Park field use agreement, acceptance of easements for art and a bench at the Hayden Surgery Center east of North Government Way, approval of contract amendment with JUB for preliminary engineering for H6 lift station and Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer Dakota Avenue to Wyoming Avenue, ramification of bills paid on 2/27/2024 and 2/29/2024, and finally approval of bills for payment. Is there any discussion relevant to those items on the consent calendar? I'm hearing none. May I get a motion, please?
I motion that we approve the consent calendar as read by the mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to move on to public comment.
Item 2B.
Whoops. Wow, there's an attention span. Yeah, consent, what was formerly consent calendar item 2B, the approval of February 27th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes is now open for discussion by City Council.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So I would like to take a look at item 7B in the reports, the Mayor Council Roundtable discussion. The first item says, discussion ensued about the process for removing or considering items on the consent calendar separately. The conclusion was to move an item from the consent calendar, that to move an item from a consent calendar will require a motion and a second during the additions or corrections section of the agenda. And I would just like to state that I've listened to this item again on YouTube, and I don't believe that this statement correctly reflects what was agreed on or said, and I have a correction that I would like to make. So I was going to distribute this to you, let you guys take a look at my amended change to the consent calendar there. Oh, here, I have another copy.
Are we handing out handouts that aren't on the agenda in the packet? Because I know another entity is running into the same situation.
Councilwoman White, can you read your proposed
Yes,
correction
ma'am.
into the record, please?
Yes. So my proposed revision is, Mayor Davis initiated a discussion regarding consent calendar procedure. Discussion ensued regarding the proper purpose of a consent calendar and correct procedure for removing an item during the additions and corrections portion of the agenda at the request of a council member. Council members Roder and DePriest are in favor of items only being removed from the consent calendar with a motion and a second. Council members Schaefer and White stated that a council member should be able to ask for any consent calendar item to be removed from the consent calendar without a second and placed elsewhere in the agenda to be discussed and voted on separately. Legal counsel Fonda Jovic said council member Schaefer stated it correctly. Mayor Davis stated that this was a discussion and not an action item, therefore no decision was reached. So that's my statement that I'm proposing.
So the appropriate protocol for the amendment to the minutes is for your clerk to have an opportunity to go back and review the video in comparison with the minutes, and then, so you can make a motion and a vote to approve the amendment pending verification by the clerk.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion, or would we like to have our clerk verify the proposed revision first?
Could you restate your question, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I understand our attorney has said we have two options. One is to ask our clerk to confirm the revision against the recorded meeting. The other is to make a motion to accept the revision pending a review from the city clerk.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would move that this be tabled to allow the clerk to review. Yeah, and based on that review, at probably the next meeting, I would assume, we could deal with the issue.
The minutes would then be
Mr. Mayor?
resubmitted.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe tabling is a correct motion for an item like this, because tabling takes it off of the table altogether.
Okay. Any thoughts, council? I mean, this is your guys' decision.
Mr. Mayor, for the most part, I agree with everything that Councilman Councilwoman White has written here, this was my recollection as well. I have no problem with it being read into minutes.
Matt, any thoughts?
Well, I know that minutes are not verbatim. They don't have to be, and I think that, to be fair, is to allow our clerk to verify the statement, and so that we can address the issue after the verification.
Okay, so I'll,
Mayor, I accept what Councilmember Roder said, that we would have our clerk verify it.
okay, so if someone wants to make a motion,
Well, I think you have, you have an additional request regarding these minutes, so why don't you hear the second
we
request?
could do that. I was going to split them, but we can not split them, that's fine.
I would hear your second request, because I think what you're going to end up with is a motion to have the minutes back on the agenda and amended based on these requests after the clerk has a chance to verify.
Okay. Tom?
I have the floor, thank you. So mine was regarding, excuse me, it was, oh goodness, I had it written down.
Subsection F.
Subsection F, thank you. So this was regarding the contract agreement that the city has gone into regarding cost sharing of the H1 sewer updates. And there was a bit of a substantial back and forth between myself and members of the staff, and I wanted that to be added into the minutes because there was some important information. So this is what I propose. Councilmember Schaefer asked about the technical and contractual details in order to clarify some disparities between the sewer master plan and the cost breakdowns provided in the cost share agreement. It was acknowledged by the city engineer that the cost increases requiring this agreement are mainly a result of the estimates made for labor and materials when the project was scoped out, and that the current estimates based on inflation. Councilmember Schaefer inquired why section 4.5 is in the proposed contract, which establishes to the developers of Hayden Canyon the unrestricted right to sell, assign, or transfer connection fee reimbursements of the GAP fund contributions. He further asked if these reimbursement rights are sold to other developers, would it put the city of Hayden in a position where it would be compelled into new annexation agreements? The answer from legal counsel and the city administrator for the purpose of section 4.5 of the contract agreement is that if for some business reason the Hayden Canyon developers could no longer afford to carry the debt, they could sell their hookups to other lands within the H6 basin. Staff further expanded on the fact that the sale of the hookups would in no way force city council to approve future annexations.
And to be clear, for the record, that would be in addition to the verbiage that's already in the minutes. Correct.
Yes.
Councilman Shaver?
Okay. Matt, any comments? On the proposed addendum, amendment?
I need help with memory here. Is that what Councilmember Schaefer has said from a legal sense? Is that all correct? I mean, that we, whatever obligation we do or we don't have, is it stated correctly? I don't know, I'm
I
asking.
think the same motion that was recommended that the clerk review for consistency with the record would be the same motion that we would do in this regard too, but my recollection was this was an accurate statement. But again, we got this just before the council meeting, so we haven't had a chance to review it.
Okay, I would want our clerk to verify.
Okay, Sandy?
Fonda, could you repeat for us what our options are for motions?
So it sounds like, if I heard you all correctly, you would be leaning towards a motion to have these minutes placed back on consent agenda at your next meeting with these amendments included after verification from the clerk.
Yes.
Okay, so no other
That's what
comment?
I move to,
Before I make a motion, can I go round
Yes.
through everybody? Okay, so no
Okay.
other comments?
no other comments.
All right, wonderful.
Thank you.
Ed, any comments?
Well, it's basically, table may not be the correct word, okay? But the discussion we're having regarding the first one and this one is, yeah, to let the clerk review them, make sure everything's accurate, then bring it back.
Okay.
Whatever the proper terminology is.
All right, if council is satisfied, do we have a motion then?
Yes, I move to have these minutes reconsidered, have the clerk look at them with the proposed changes from Tom Schaefer and Sandra White included.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Second, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
And Councilmember White? Yes.
All right. Now I believe we can move on to visitor and public comment. Do we have any? We do.
No, we do.
We do not? Oh.
For the-
This is really for the public hearing, but I don't know that that's figured out back there.
Not for the public hearing.
Okay. I have a question. I have a Sentinel Trust in the, is your comment for the hearing or for general comment?
Just to be read, I'm not interested in speaking.
One more, I'm sorry?
Just to be read, not interested in speaking, but just to be considered.
Okay, but it's for the land use case.
Yeah,
The one
correct.
with the
Thank you.
green instead of the yellow.
We'll do that later, right?
If you could do that, that'd be even just this part, and then I can staple them together.
Okay. We'll hit that in a minute. All right. All right, so we do have one public comment. So I will read the script. This is a city council meeting taking place in public to document city business transparently. While it is not a meeting with the public, we provide citizens with an opportunity to speak at the podium. Public comments are welcome, but they cannot include upcoming issues for which our city council will reasonably hold a hearing. This especially includes issues related to anticipated land use decisions. As we are all here to positively build our city, if your comments are based on tearing the city down, I still want to hear from you, but ask that you submit your comments in writing so I may follow up with you personally. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes. I, our city staff, and council members encourage citizens to more meaningfully engage us through a personal appointment. I will visibly indicate when a speaker needs to conclude quickly with their comments. Upon being recognized, I will ask you to step up to the podium, state your name and primary residential city. So we have Mr. Art Collins.
I'll wait till action items for the action. I don't want to do it now.
Oh, this is in support of the,
Planning on 5 days, so I'll wait till you get there.
all right.
You want to open that up, 5A?
That's not a public hearing, is it?
Well, I think it is, actually.
No.
No.
This is the applicant's.
5A.
Oh, 5A, sorry. Oh, that's the comp plan. So Art, there's no public comment in 5A. If you want to give it now, you can give it now.
I was told differently that the mayor decides if there's going to be public comments on like unfinished business. Are you deciding that there's going to be no comment on 5A, no public comment?
No, I'm saying
You're
that,
saying it could be, I was told it can be or can't be, but you make the decision.
yes, and I'm saying yes, and the time is now.
Now's the time.
Yes, sir.
Not then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Well, I made my,
So Art, just for the
it's
record,
in writing, so I'll pass it out to you.
okay.
I passed it out, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do you want one too?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Do you need one?
I gotta read my own thing. What a deal. Really get to be 85. It's interesting.
So Art, just for the record, you're a citizen of Hayden, yes?
Yeah, Art Collins, live on 1214 Glenmore Court. I've been here since 1983.
All right, fire away,
A
sir.
lot of interest in Hayden, and I'm trying to be helpful helpful. Please understand that. I want to be positive. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so what I'm recommending is that the following be initiated by the Hayden Planning and Zoning Commission or the Hayden City Council. You initiate, either one can initiate this. The formation of a Hayden Citizen Advisory Committee having the sole purpose to formulate and recommend amendments of the City of Hayden 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Number 2, if you consider it or approve it, I'm giving you options. You don't have to approve it now. You can consider it, just to consider it. You can consider or approve it. I will submit a detailed process for the formation of the advisory committee that does the following. It includes, this is very important, proposed comprehensive plan amendments of the vision of the goals and policies completed by workshops of planning and zoning commissions and city councils, which are stated in a City of Hayden memo, which you have of 3/5/2024. You have that memo. That'll be included. And that the formation of the advisory committee would be in accord with Idaho Code, Chapter 65, Local Land Use Planning. This recommendation is a good response to the citizen survey, because in the citizen survey, it says 63% of the people that did it didn't even know there was a comprehensive plan. 0. Okay, if you get the citizens involved, they become aware of the comprehensive plan. And I did that for Eagle, Meridian, and Cuna. Okay. Also, it's an excellent response to the citizen survey, which says that managing population growth is their highest priority. The way you manage population growth is the comp plan, and then you do it through ordinance. But you start with the comp plan, and that sets up the parameters for regulations and zoning. Yeah. And then it's also an excellent response to the citizen survey that said managing growth and density of the city was the highest priority, but it was 76%, but it was rated poor, the highest, 42%.
Art, thank you.
Okay, so I'm saying is, what I'm doing is say, here's what you did, and to respond to that, I'm making that recommendation, so I'm not just doing it for the sake of what the hell.
Thank you, sir.
I'm trying to be helpful, and because you've already got feedback from the citizens, and I'm saying, I think, just do this, and it can be initiated by the council, it can be initiated by the P&Z, or both. They give you flexibility in the state code to do either or.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you, sir.
If you want to be on the committee and they start to consider it, let me know. I'll put your name on the list. I'll tell you what the process is, okay?
All right, now we're going to move into a public hearing for PZE 230115, the Hayden Sky Preliminary Planned Unit Development. I'm going to introduce the subject case, which I just did. The applicant will present, staff will present. There will be public comment directed to council. The applicant will be offered a rebuttal. We will close public hearings, we'll have deliberations, and council will make a decision. To our council, have you had any ex parte with the applicant or general public regarding the subject case?
I need to read a statement here.
Yeah. Real quick before you do, Ed, on my right, anybody else? No? Sandra? No? All right.
Okay. I have had discussions since this was last before council, I believe about a month ago, primarily related to two posts about this PUD, which originated on Councilmember Schaefer's Facebook page and which were widely shared throughout social media. My discussion was primarily related to statutes, codes, process, property rights, and zoning. I was questioned about the status of Hayden's infrastructure. I referred them to the transportation and sewer master plans. I was asked about pausing growth until the infrastructure can catch up. I cut and pasted state statute 676523 on when a moratorium can be enacted and stated that I don't believe that the current growth situation in Hayden would fit within the imminent peril to health, safety, and welfare requirement of the statute. I also pointed out that the moratorium is only good for 182 days, and that's what could be accomplished in 182 days. I did not give an opinion or state where I stand related to this PUD, and I am certain that I can deliberate this issue without bias, based solely on the testimony and information in the record already and what will be entered tonight.
Okay, anybody else
Mr.
have
Mayor?
anything to add? Yes, sir.
Can I respond to that since he brought my name up?
Well, you can, sure.
Okay, thank you. So Councilman DePriest is correct. I did make a post on about the time that we first deliberated on this. And I in no way referred to this specific preliminary planned unit development. I simply posed the question to the citizens of Hayden, do you want sprawl or density? And I was trying to kind of channel the words of Councilman DePriest from a workshop that we had had previously. Maybe I misunderstood what he said, but I was soliciting feedback on how people wanted to see the way that the city grew in terms of developments. So there was a lot of strife and derision that came out of that post. I in no way intended for that to happen. I was strictly trying to get feedback because I'm an elected official. I am accountable to the people who elected me, and I wanted their feedback. Thank you.
So Councilman Schaefer, Councilman DePriest ended his statement by indicating that he can remain unbiased and review the evidence presented to him in this public hearing for his decision-making process.
Yes.
Are you able to remain unbiased and rely on the record?
Absolutely, yes.
Does the applicant have any concerns with the information that was presented by both council members?
Podium or here?
Go to the podium, please. Thank you.
For the record, Jeremy Terzulli, I'm a land use consultant with Olson Engineering representing the property owner. Hit me kind of quickly, so allow me a little bit of grace as I try to articulate what I feel there. The public hearing is not open yet. Those statements are preceding the public hearing, therefore, are they a matter of public record?
They're of public record, but they're not part of the evidence for the application. We're just evaluating based on what you heard, do you believe both council members can maintain their neutrality and be unbiased in the decision-making?
I have some concerns, to be honest with you. I'm not, I don't participate in social media. I know it's created a new landscape with regard to public hearings and public discourse. I think at this time, we'd like to go ahead with the public hearing. I may request, would I be able to request copies of those social media posts if an appeal is necessary?
Yes, you may.
Okay, then I think, yeah, let's move onward and upward, and hopefully everybody can make an unbiased decision this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna, would you like to introduce the case? Please.
So this is PZE 23-0115. It's the Hayden Sky Preliminary Planned Unit Development. Had a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission in December of 2023. And following due process, it came out of the City Council for a public meeting in January of 2024. It came before the City Council prior to the transportation impact analysis being completed. And that has been completed, and as such, we wanted to enter that completed transportation impact analysis into the record, and because we needed, in order to do that, we had to have a public hearing. So tonight, that city council public hearing had been noticed, and we're here tonight to do that. I'm going to go through these slides relatively quickly because you guys have all seen them in January, but we do have a pretty good sized audience here that potentially will testify, and so it will be good to have a kind of the lay of the land. So in 1991, the property was annexed into the city, and then it was de-annexed by court order, and then annexed again by owner request in 2013. Conditions of that annexation included, but are not limited to, a pretty wide swath along Hutter Road in anticipation of some kind of future bypass or road construction along Hutter. The gross residential density of the annexed area was limited to 4 dwelling units per acre, and 15 acres of the property must be developed as a public park area. The property today consists of undeveloped grassland, a hayfield, several structures, residential structures. On the southeast corner of the project, a well house on the north portion of the project. And the existing home is proposed to be removed during redevelopment of the property, should this request be granted. The applicant and engineer of record, you heard of Jeremy Trezulli, came up and testified just now, and Eric Olson from Olson Engineering. Wave. There you go. John and Jacqueline Peterson and the Mills Family Tree Farms are the owners of the property. And in the narrative provided by the applicant, the vision of Hayden Sky is to create housing for a community in desperate need of a wider range of housing options. The request identifies a mix of housing options. It recognizes the light industrial component when it was annexed. It also recognizes the limitations of that light industrial in concert with residential single family adjacent to it. The property is approximately 127 acres in size, and it's projected to, or anticipated to be constructed in 4 phases. So this is the location of the site. The area in kind of gray is, or brown, I guess, is the outline. It recently went through a boundary line adjustment, which effectively the area that is to the south, not a part of this PUD, is basically a commercial, the whole commercial area, and this is entirely the residential light industrial piece. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Jeremy Trezulli back to the podium. As I mentioned, land use consultant representing the owners, the Petersons, and on behalf of Olson Engineering, the engineer of record. So a lot of this is already a matter of public record, so I might move a little quickly through some of the first stuff, some of the things that have already been presented once, discussed. I don't have any problem if you stop me mid-presentation if you have any questions or if you want to save them to the end. So away we go. Hayden Sky Planned Unit Development. We've been at this now for about 18 months. Bringing it forward to you. Again, a reminder, this is not, we're not requesting approval of all the brass tacks items of this. It's a broad strokes view from 20,000 square feet. Does our request meet the intent of Hayden City Code for a preliminary planned unit development, where then we can enter into further discussion with city staff, council to start to hammer out some of the finer details. And I think we'll, between the narrative, there's a lot of information in the narrative. Hopefully you've had a chance to read it. The previous public hearing and the staff report cover an awful lot of things, and I will try to move quickly through those. So the PUD may be approved if it's determined that it creates an overall design that is consistent with the goals and policies of the comp plan, fulfills the general intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance, is compatible with the standards and the character of the underlying zone and the future land use map. So the general intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. That's why I brought up these two side-by-side comparisons. On the right is the current zoning map. And if you look at that odd-shaped parcel that sort of looks like a tomahawk there, it has been boundary line adjusted to the commercial zone. That's the red adjacent to Hayden Avenue, and that is not part of this request. We're talking about that line north. To the left is our future land use map. And we made an attempt to sort of mash these together, keep some of the higher density, the townhomes, in more of what would be the purple region and against transportation corridors, up against the industrial, more intense zoning and the commercial zoning, and then migrate the less intense and larger single-family style lots more towards the center of the development. So that was by intent. So that represents what I was just talking about. The purple represents those townhomes. Those are 4-unit townhomes with 2-car garages each unit. Each unit could potentially have a condominium plat put over it. At this time, we do not have a condo plat in place, but that is an option down the road if we choose to go that route. And then, as I mentioned, our smaller lots are sort of the blue lots, and the larger lots are in green. These are the standards of approval for preliminary planned unit development. Allows a variety of housing choices, building types, permits increased density per acre, and a reduction in lot dimensions, setbacks, balanced by the provision of open space and common areas. So we provide a lot of open space. We have asked for a reduction in lot dimensions. Those are kind of, in the narrative, those are outlined much better, what deviations we're looking for from the underlying.
Can I ask you how much open space their total is?
A little over 15 acres of parkland and another 2 or 3 acres of, don't quote me on that, somewhere 1 to 2 acres of additional non-buildable lots. You'll see those if I back up. I have a slide that outlines that.
Okay.
A couple more down.
Okay.
Stop me when we get there and we can talk about it. Where was I? Right, oh, the big thing. We're not requesting any density bonuses for this planned unit development. Depending on which way you stack it up, the annexation agreement talked about no more than 4 units per gross acre. The fully annexed area that was subject to that annexation agreement was roughly 150 acres. You take out the commercial and some other areas that aren't part of this PUD, we're down to 127. You take out the parkland, we're down to 112. And in none of those scenarios, whatever number you use, if you divide our 412 proposed units, do you exceed 4 units per acre? Just want to make that very clear. A more useful pattern of open space and recreation areas is achieved with more convenience and location of accessory commercial uses, industrial uses, and service if applicable. Again, the narrative speaks in volumes about this. The staff report in volumes. We've strategically placed all of our uses within this planned unit development to reflect sound planning practices with your smaller lots and your more intense uses of the townhomes. Perhaps those are 1-vehicle homes, more pedestrian. Those are going to be closer to our commercial and industrial uses, along corridors, hopefully future bus routes, those types of things. And we've laid it out that way with a purpose. So, Councilman DePriest, to your point, the parkland is going to be that 6.8 acre park, 6.6, I'm sorry, and the almost 8.5 acre park adjacent to Dakota. The slightly lighter green shaded area represents common areas in between the townhomes. That's designed to be a courtyard in between the townhomes. Let me help illustrate this. So these townhomes are going to be back to back, and this is a drive aisle in between. So the front yards of these will be facing Downing. The front yards of these will be facing an open green space, a courtyard with a mirror image on the other side. This is a drive aisle corridor with rear loaded garages. So that's that open space between the townhomes. And at all the intersections where you see a light green, those are non-buildable lots that we tried to hold back in order to keep sight lines open and give it a more open feel.
So there are no front-loaded garages. Everything will come in from the rear?
Only in the
In the
townhomes.
townhomes, okay.
That's correct. Development pattern preserves and utilizes natural topography and geological features. This is really non-applicable here, as this is sort of flat, gently sloping hayfield out on the edge of town. None of our structures currently, as part of this PUD, are asking for any height variations, so they'll be subject to any height restrictions in the underlying zoning. A more efficient use of land that is generally achieved through conventional development, resulting in substantial savings through shorter utilities and streets. Again, this one is not really applicable due to the need to extend Dakota, which is a major collector in the city's master transportation plan. And we were required to extend Dakota all the way through and create a connection point at Hutter. So by having to do that, we weren't able to densify anything. We had to spread it east and west all the way across. However, the alignment of Dakota to line up with I believe there's a connection point to the west. I can't think of the name right now. Due to that alignment and where it swings up, we were able to achieve gravity sewer throughout the entire site. We won't need to put in any force mains. We won't need to put in any lift stations. Everything can gravity feed south of Dakota. More energy efficient development, the minimization of stormwater runoff or one or more open space and concentrated density, thematic architecture, more beneficial community design and patterns of land use development will be possible than through the strict application of the zoning ordinance. So if R1 was over this entire thing, it would be nothing but 8,250 square foot lots everywhere. Our idea was to skirt the park with some of those larger lots as we move towards the corridors, towards the commercial, towards the industrial, to shrink down some of those lot sizes. And at the end of the day, we're trying to help control the end price of a unit as it comes to market. So the master design of this was specifically based kind of on E in this whole approval process. We're trying to bring a variety of housing units to the market at a differing price range.
Do you have, I had a question about this, the stormwater runoff. It was brought up. And do you have any diagrams or any visualizations of the stormwater runoff that is planned for this?
So everything that's proposed in Hayden Sky is a public right-of-way. Every public right-of-way and every city street in Hayden has stormwater treatment in street side swales. We haven't asked for any deviations, any private roads, any sheet draining, any concentration of stormwater. Again, we're not 100% through the whole design yet. If we find any areas where infiltration of stormwater could be complicated, although we don't anticipate it, it's basically pit run and prairie gravel out here. By utilizing a typical street section, which will be driven by the city engineer, based on the classification of a street, all stormwater will be treated in street side swales.
Okay.
So, the proposed PUD is consistent with the intent and the purpose of this chapter. Again, covered at length in the narrative, previous public hearing, and the staff report. The proposed development advances the general welfare of the community. So, the benefits to the community is going to be the 15 acres of parkland, the extension of Dakota Avenue all the way to Hutter, thus hopefully helping relieve congestion on Hayden and adding to the usability of the overall street network. Widening of Hayden Avenue, regardless of whether or not this goes first or the commercial goes first. Part of the agreement is that Hayden Avenue will be widened, as well as, and Eric Olson's going to speak more to this a little bit later on, that the developer is going to participate in building out the intersections as directed by the traffic impact analysis at Carrington and Hayden, and at Hayden and Hutter. And then there's discussion to be had about other intersections, but I'm going to let Eric get into that, as he is the engineer and I am not. As well as a collection of impact fees. We feel, honestly, that development is going to happen in this area. This is a really good way to bring a variety of housing options to the market and to advance the infrastructure in the area and help alleviate some of the traffic concerns in this area, as well as parks and those other benefits that I spoke of. The benefits, combination of land uses, interrelationship with the land uses in the surrounding area justify the deviation from standard zoning and district regulations. Again, in order to bring a variety of housing options to the market, we have to fiddle with the land a little bit. We have to create some smaller lots. We have to bring a variety of housing on different corridors, the townhomes, the 5,500 square foot lots, up to the 15,000 square foot lots. We believe it's going to achieve that, and so that is our justification for deviation from the underlying R1 zoning designation. Okay, and then it points us to the approval as set forth in 1173 of City Code, which is right here. This is sort of a reiteration, sort of conditions of approval nested inside of conditions of approval. The proposal is in accordance with the general objectives of the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. We believe we've outlined that it does. The location, design, size of the proposal is such that the development will be adequately served by infrastructure, including EMS, fire, police, trash pickup, mail delivery. All of those things are readily available in this area. I believe the sheriff did weigh in and comment on this project. I believe it's in the packet. The design and planning to include construction, operation, and maintenance of the site is compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses and the intended character of the general vicinity. So R1 lots, we've tried to push up against the adjacent R1 development. Against the major corridors, we've tried to put the more high-intense uses, and we've tried to plunk the parks right in the middle of all of it. So yes, we believe it does, it is compatible.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Concerning number 2, where adequately served by sewer, my question to you is, how many residential, when the project is fully built out, how many residential sewer hookups will be required?
In the approximately 7 to 10 year build out, at complete build out, we're proposing 412 units. And if we're being fully transparent, there is a self-storage component on the industrial. Those would typically require 1, possibly 2, depending on the number of units, ADA accessible. So that would push us up to 414. Yes, sir.
Previously, I think the last time we heard, and correct me if I'm misunderstood or wrong, there was, the guesstimate was that there would be 6 18-month phases. Am I?
Yeah, I think.
Was that
We've been at this for 18 months.
Yeah.
I wouldn't anticipate approval for at least another, approval of construction for another 12, if I'm being honest. And then conditions have sort of changed. I do anticipate it's going to be more like 2 or 3 years per phase, and we might.
instead of 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, we were pushing an aggressive timeline 18 months ago, but A lot of stuff has happened in 18 months, with
So
interest
instead of
rates.
roughly 6 years, you're now anticipating 7 to 10
It's
years?
really hard to pin it down right
I
now,
understand
but
that, so roughly.
yeah,
Okay.
5 to 7, 7 to 10.
Yeah.
It depends on
lot
what
of things.
happens. There's a lot that can happen. Yes, sir.
Back at the beginning of your presentation, when you were talking about the townhomes, and you said something, and I'm trying to recall from memory, they could be converted to could you restate that?
So
and
not
explain what that means?
converted, they are designed in such a way. So typical fourplexes, a person might say, is 2 stacked over the top of 2. These were designed as townhomes, meaning there'll be a party wall, and each unit will go ground up to the sky. So the party wall will become a property line, and we could theoretically put a condominium plat over there. It's something we have to talk with the owners about as to what their overall plan is. With a project this size, there's typically multiple players in action. This isn't one individual or one company working the whole thing and then going to build the whole thing out from beginning to end. There's going to be a lot of nuance as we move forward. There will be different parties that come to the table that may want to buy up blocks of lots. They may want to buy up 1 or 2 of these structures and condo plat them. Some of them may not. There's a lot of moving parts.
When you condo plat them, what does that do legally?
It allows each unit to be sold fee simple and have a deed of trust placed on it, as opposed to just being a rental.
Okay, thank you. I have another question for you, and this is kind of sort of create context for the discussion here. So I'm looking at Chapter 6 of the city codes on plan unit developments, and I'm just going to read the first sentence. It says, "The intent of a plan unit development is to provide greater flexibility in land use and encourage greater design creativity that is generally allowed under conventional standards and development approaches." And then somewhere in here it talks about, design. Okay, there's something in here about density as well, and I'm not finding it right now. But where I'm going with this is that I'm going to reiterate a couple facts I know to be true, and I just want to provide a kind of a reference. So this was originally annexed in as no more than 4 dwelling units per acre, right?
Per gross acre, correct?
Yeah, and now it's zoned R1, which means that lot sizes can be as small as 8,250 square feet, which is
1/5 of an acre.
1/5 of an acre. So since density comes into this as an adjective or a descriptor, if you go back to that plat there, what would you say as far as the different varieties of structures or lot sizes there would fall above that density benchmark versus below?
I am not understanding the question.
You want to know what your parcel, what your lot sizes are.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, no comment from the gallery.
Thank you.
So you're asking what number
And
falls under 8250?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha. Yeah, okay, let me go back. So this is what we're talking about. Here, let's use this one because it's right here. You're saying of all the lots described up there, which of those do not meet the minimum threshold of 8,250 square foot
Yes.
minimum lot size?
Yes.
It would be everything. These would be about the only ones that do, and a couple of these down here, and a couple of these over here, maybe.
Everything else would be smaller.
Correct.
Okay, and in order to do that, in order to get the park space and the variety of housing options, that's the solution you came up with. No,
Meaning, okay, I think you're insinuating we're trying to maximize density even though we have to give up
no,
all
no, no,
this
no, no. I'm
park
just
space.
trying to, for the sake of the public here, I'm trying to give a reference point on what would fall under the.
Let me put it another way, because I ran this exercise earlier. I think I know what you're working towards right
Yeah.
now. If we had 0 deviations from the 8250 underlying zoning, how many lots could we fit on here while dedicating the required park space? Is that kind of what you're going towards?
Yes, or there would be no parks in order to.
We would, we have to. That's part of the annexation
Okay.
agreement. That's a gotta have it.
Got it, I
So we're
understand.
kind of down to 112 acres. If you take the 127, you subtract the 15 acres of parkland that is required per the annexation agreement, we're down to 112. Now, if you take out roads, sidewalks, public rights of way, I think the count, and we didn't run this exercise fully, but we're probably going to wind up with somewhere between 360 and 400 single-family dwelling units. I think it might be pushing it a little bit. I think 350 is on the low end. If we were really creative with our space, I think we might be able to push towards 400. That's a possibility.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry that my questions were so obtuse.
That's okay. It's, it's fine. Just gotta go back to where I was. I believe we just finished with this slide. And so now I'm gonna kind of get into the reason that deliberations were suspended until today and we reopened the public hearing. I believe it was brought up that there was some current concerns around traffic, concerns around sewer. I heard a couple of concerns about the parkland. Hopefully I've been able to clarify that those parks were put where they were very specifically for, there was a lot of thought put into where those parks were put. The larger of the two parks, we intend that to be more like a Finucane type park, a Crawford type park, more intense users, perhaps some soccer fields, some ball fields, and it is directly adjacent to the major collector, Dakota. The other park was specifically put in the northeast quadrant as sort of a more mellow park, think Stoddard Park, kind of not right out there with a lot of noise, and perhaps, like I said, a quieter, more peaceful park. So that was done by design. So the sewer issue, I was able to obtain a recording of the regular meeting by Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board that was held on February 15th. I also got some follow-up comment from Ken Windrum up there, and we discussed this a little bit. So part of the discussion for that meeting was the issuance of will serve letters by the sewer board. It was determined that that's really not in their purview, that should get punted to the city and the other agencies that are serviced by HARBS. There was a request made, and I believe it was approved, to expand a study to evaluate potential need for facility upgrades. There was some holes missing in the data, and they were looking to fill those holes. Also, a discussion of nullifying the joint powers agreement between the three entities that make that up, and the general feeling is Hayden is the lion's share of why HARBS is even needed, and perhaps it would be easiest for the city of Hayden to just control the sewer board. They're looking through the legalities of that, so that's what came out of there. And then there was some discussion about current capacity. So I know Councilman Roeder was there, and it sounded like Councilman DePriest was there, so if I misheard something, I'm open to clarification here. What I heard was there were over 700 hookups available currently. That additional hookups could likely be available with no additional upgrades. And that may seem counterintuitive, but the explanation that was given was that they're currently basing a hookup, an ER, on 172.5 gallons per day. However, the holes in the data are, it's not a straight line because there's a load calculation that goes into there, and they just haven't really done a full-blown analysis. However, if 100 ERs get issued this year at 172.5 gallons per day, not every one of them is going to use every bit of that capacity. They seem to be overestimating a little bit. The usage will then come in a year, and even though they gave 100, they may say there's still 620 left because we were only using 80% of the modeled capacity of those 100 hookups. Hopefully that makes sense. Current average daily volume out there is about 1.2 million gallons making it to the facility. There were a few anomalies that weren't factored in. However, no peak hour data is available, and that's sort of a critical component that needs to be had, and that will be gathered in that study. Also, the design of the current facility is to handle a little more than 2 million gallons per day without expanding the footprint. And what that would mean would be upgrades to agitators, pumps, different doohickeys and whiz bangs and that whole thing. And they can treat a little over 2 million gallons per day. But nobody knows right now what that's going to cost. That's what this study is hoping to unravel. And then they'll go for there. But their justification was, you don't build out a facility to its full capacity until you need it, because you may never need it. And now you've just spent money that you didn't need to spend. The general feeling was, we're getting to that point where this analysis is necessary, and as more volume is needed, in all likelihood, we should be able to provide it. That was what I gathered from that meeting. And then moving on to the traffic study, I am going to turn this over to Eric, because he is the licensed engineer that has evaluated the traffic impact analysis and the Hayden sewer, or transportation master plan in detail, and he can provide greater clarity there.
Jeremy, good evening, council, mayor. Eric Olson, Olson Engineering. I'm going to provide a brief summary of the traffic impact analysis that was performed by Iteris, who is the city's consultant that is charged with performing these analyses, and also the same consultant that has built the city's traffic model and prepared the current transportation plan. So currently, as of 2023, as of last year when we did the traffic counts, the intersections of Hayden Avenue with Meyer Road, Hutter Road, Atlas Road, and Ramsey Road are all at level of service F in the PM peak hour. Level of service F, that's the worst level of service you can have. That means an average delay of greater than 50 seconds for the worst movement at the intersection. So we can all feel that if we pull up to Hayden Avenue, say at Hutter Road at 5 o'clock. If you don't get lucky, you might be waiting there for a couple of minutes. Hayden Sky traffic is going to incrementally increase delays at these intersections. And would also cause the intersection of Hayden and Carrington to operate at a level of service F without mitigation, right? So, the mitigations that were proposed by the consultant in the traffic impact analysis included a temporary signal at the intersection of Hutter and Hayden prior to the project opening year, the full build out of the project. A signal or a roundabout at Carrington and Hayden prior to the opening year of the project. So those were kind of the two, these are the project specific impacts. 3 and 4 here, I think they're identifying other issues in the immediate vicinity of our project where they might be looking for some help from this developer, maybe other developers in accomplishing these other improvements. So number 3 there is an expedited construction of the planned roundabout at Atlas Road and Hayden Avenue. And number 4 is the widening of Hayden Avenue, adding a center turn lane between Atlas Road and Ramsey Road prior to 2030. So we've discussed with our clients representation about what they're willing to offer here. And so they're willing to commit to funding 1 and 2 and willing to discuss proportionate share contributions or advance impact fee contributions to improvements 3 and 4. There's a couple other, we know of a couple of other large projects in the area to the south of us, either side of Hutter Road, that are also going to be proposing some significant, I don't want to say density, some significant counts of single-family homes. And I think everybody working collectively together here can make a real difference. Developer money, we can get things done cheaper and generally faster because we're not strapped with the types of, with the requirements that come with state and federal aid. And then the last line there, the total impact fees for this entire project, including the commercial area, are estimated at $1.5 million. Any questions on this portion? Mr. Priest?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say this because when we get to deliberations, this was going to be my big issue here. And I know that we aren't negotiating here, we can't do that and the like. The temporary signal is, would you know if the developer, the landowner, the applicant would consider sooner than 2030 in any of those?
I would think so, particularly with that one.
Yeah, well, there's 1 and 2, the signals and the intersection control, I think, is major as of right now.
Yeah.
And the widen, that's also nice, but the Hayden Hutter is a dangerous intersection right now. And as this, if this does build out control of that intersection, I believe is very important, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm getting nods from the, from the back there. So that one, and I'd point out, just to the west, Meyer Road, also in a failing state, but outside of your jurisdiction, there was a fatality there recently, and it's sad to say, but sometimes that's what it takes to get a project built. And Post Falls Highway District has a federal aid project already on the books, 2028, to construct a roundabout there at Meyer and Hutter, but let's. Yeah, sorry. Meyer and Hayden. So let's get out in front of it before there is one, right? I'd say the second one, the Carrington-Hayden signal, I think we'd want to look at probably a phased analysis of the project. Let's see when that, at what time, as the background traffic's increasing and as our phases are coming in, when does that signal become necessary?
Well, I think you just touched on where I was kind of going in, is initially before construction begins, some mitigation, and then as you phase through it, but hopefully having completion of the end project, signalization or whatever, long before the final project is built out.
Sure.
Question.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Looking through this analysis, and this isn't something I do very often, these traffic studies, so bear with me.
Sure.
And I just trying to understand, I go to page 10, and I'm just going to pick intersection 6, which is Ramsey Road, Hayden Avenue. We have a peak and PM hour, both are F, failing, the worst. Okay, and then I'm looking at, on page 16, the bottom table, 6.1, no project conditions, intersection peak hour level of service. Is that saying that this is what the intersection should be rated with no development?
That's correct. I think that when it says no project, it includes background ambient growth, but they're saying no development out of this Hayden Sky project.
Okay, so my question is on where number 6, Ramsey Road, Hayden Avenue, how do we get to a rating of B on peak hour and AM peak hour, and B on PM peak hour if they were at F and there's no development.
So are we looking between 2030 or 25 maybe?
Project on the books, isn't there?
Matt, that
Right.
includes a roundabout.
Yeah.
Right.
Pardon?
That's got improvements in the intersection.
So that's,
If you look at there, it says roundabout.
okay, so that's why I'm asking is how did they get improved? So is that looking at, is this study based on how much, looking at what the city will have to pay for to get to these no project ratings?
That's what our transportation master plan looks at.
So how are we going to pay for that?
The roundabout,
Yeah.
impact fees.
Yeah, but if we don't have
Impact.
development from this development, I mean, that's the big problem is we are behind the 8 ball. We have been for a while. Is how do we pay for future when we can't fix what we already have? That's
Be careful not to deliberate at this time. This is just a question period for the applicant.
okay. Maybe you can help me with this. How do we pay for this?
I think a private-public partnership is going to be the best way to do it. Collection of impact fees, opening up the discussion. Eric and I are very familiar with other developments that are in design phase in the area, and if we're all having an open, honest, and transparent discussion without messing up open meeting laws, you can take a chunk of impact fees from this project and adjacent projects, work with city staff, your consultants at Iteris, and say, where is our money best spent? We got stuck behind the 8 ball. We are here. Nobody can deny that. You experience it every day when you're out there driving. How do we take this whole corridor and say, just as an example, let's leave Hayden Avenue a 2-lane section for right now as we're gathering right-of-way to turn it into a 3-lane section and focus on the intersections. Get the roundabouts built, because even if it's only 2 lanes, but those intersections are better, everyone's going to experience greater traffic flow. So I think it's going to take outside the box thinking. That's been my thought for years. The number of times I've presented in front of you guys, we've got to get out of rigid thinking on how to fix it.
Another question, maybe whoever can answer this, is the intersection of Hayden and Ramsey. If the funding goes through and we're able to continue the Ramsey Road extension all the way to Lancaster, that's going to put a lot more traffic onto that Ramsey and Hayden intersection. Was this study, did that take in consideration the possibility that that will be built? And what impact that volume will have? Because that's going to be a major source of traffic going north and south on Ramsey.
Do you want me to answer this?
Go ahead.
The Ramsey Road extension is part of our model, and it's part of the model, and it is modeled, the traffic is modeled.
And therefore is part of this traffic impact analysis.
So that's my question. So yes, that's taken in consideration,
Yes.
whatever increase. And how do they do that without actually measuring it?
Maybe
Like
we
the
should have them
traffic,
come
how do they know?
That's a modeling question, Matt, and it's driven by destination demand. Is how it's driven, and by the availability of capacity in a roadway system.
Okay. Thank you.
Take back over?
Any other questions for the applicant?
Any other questions on traffic? I just need to put a bow on this thing and.
I did have one question, I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
I might not understand this. Why not do all the road work before we put houses in? If I heard correctly, some of it would be done ahead, and then as the development fills, more would be done. Given that hypothetically, then people will be living there and there'll be more demands put on the road, more interruptions to our citizens' lives, why not just say, we know what it's gonna look like in the end, build the road the way you need to build it first, so that as houses are developed, nobody finds themselves in bad traffic as construction's going.
The unfortunate situation is, costs a lot of money to do that. And so to ask a developer to front all of those costs before he can bring a single unit to market, can bankrupt companies. It just might not work out financially. Just as an example, this traffic study, this was funded by the property owner. This is not paid by the city. We have to use the city's consultant. We get sent a bill, the owner pays for it, and nothing happens until that bill is paid. This developer, this property owner, is already 6 figures into this project without an approval. It's just the way it works. And so to ask him to throw $1 million at roads before any income can be brought in just might not be, maybe, but it might not be financially feasible.
Okay, and I have a follow-up question for our staff. Are there any other mechanisms out there, private-public partnership, impact fee collection, et cetera, such that we could still accomplish that using responsible use of tax dollars to contribute to this project ahead of sticks and bricks going up?
Well, remember, you're only at preliminary planned unit development phase.
Understand, just asking, just,
So there's time to evaluate that question. Should this preliminarily be approved, you could have some evaluation of that
So
before
possible.
the final PUD were to come
so
back.
possibly.
Possible.
Okay, just curious, thank you.
One more question. How early on would it be reasonable that this private-public agreement to fund the roads, and how many dollars we're talking about, how early on could those agreements be put in place?
I think it would happen between preliminary plan unit development approval and final plat approval. That's when you'd want to hammer all that stuff out.
That's with your development, and Mr. Olson mentioned there's some to the south of Hayden. How can we get those people involved?
So I've brought this up in previous meetings. I think Councilmember White and I had this discussion, is that there's a slippery slope with ex parte communication and how much we can introduce. I personally know, because I collaborate with these different people in the area, I personally know that you've got the school district. They're thinking, we're getting close to wanting to build on our property. And then you've got some Viking construction. I know all those people are out there working through preliminary design. I would bet they've met with staff on preliminary stuff. Like I said, before this ever made it to you guys, before it ever made it to P&Z, we're 12 months into this. All of these things are being designed. And I don't know the answer on what they can share, what staff can share with you. I don't know if it can be done in an open workshop forum, like, hey, staff, how many pre-developments in this area, and what would you rate the level of interest of moving this project forward would be? I don't know if you can be vague. I know they're there. I know there are engineers actively working on projects in the area. And I think they would be more than open to a discussion. I truly believe, this isn't me just trying to rah-rah for my project and try to get a win here. I think this corridor gets fixed if we do this right. I really do. I think it's right there for the taking.
You can understand our concern as a city. We don't want to be
100%.
stuck with a huge bill to fix it.
I get it, but here's the thing. A lot of your traffic on Hayden Avenue isn't driven by Hayden growth. You're just experiencing it.
We still have to pay for it.
Agreed. So let's get the development community together, whereas a city project may cost you $1.5 million, we can do it for $900K. Those are real possibilities.
Any other questions for Jeremy?
Could you just clarify something I thought I heard you say, and I got too much wax in my ears, but did you say other developers are competing for the same piece of property?
No.
Okay, okay.
In the area.
All right.
So, yeah, in the area, there are other developments that are in planning stages.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we ready to move to staff then? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I feel like I'm moving in part of it. So, again, I'm not going to try to beat the horse. We talked about the intent. I'm not going to read that whole paragraph. You've seen it. It's been in your staff review. We've heard it a couple of times. The applicant's narrative identifies how the applicant believes they've met the intent by providing greater flexibility in those types and sizes of housing options to provide connectivity with those two neighborhood parks of 6.6 acres and 8.848 acres. The parks master plan shows this area as having neighborhood parks, hence the breakup a little bit as well to meet the intent of the parks master plan. A light industrial use that will not be in conflict with the residential uses, but instead be complementary to them. And a road design in accordance with the transportation plan from east to west and north to south. They identified goal 3 and policy 4, and they're identifying the variety of housing again meets the goals, and additionally notes that the proposed project is actually less than 70% of the residential density cap for the annexation agreement. They identify the variety of housing that you've heard Mr. Trezulli talk about, and the varying price points throughout the planned unit development as proposed. They identify goal number 9 and policy number 2. And they state that the applicant has identified the comprehensive plan speaks to the desire for the preservation of open space. Councilman Schaefer kind of questioned what that was in his questions, and the applicant identified 15 acres of parkland to benefit the Hayden community for generations to come, and the development team welcomes conversations about how that park's land is going to be developed. One of the questions that Councilmember Schaefer brought up about lots and open space, the applicant has not requested variations from the standards related to the lot sizes. So the lot sizes are smaller, but the open space coverage areas would remain the same. So they're still required to have 55% open space on each lot. So the housing stock is also smaller, but their open space per lot is the same. They haven't requested variations to that. So I wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
They recognize goal 15 and policy number 9, where they believe it's a benefit to the city and the residents. They identified the developer's contribution to the city infrastructure. Again, the payment of impact fees, the developer contribution to infrastructure upgrades, and those were identified in the transportation impact analysis. I'll talk about that later on as well. It's important to note that the parkland was a requirement of the annexation agreement. So they're required to build the parks to those neighborhood park minimum requirements of a neighborhood park and pay impact fees. The requirement of the public park was a requirement of annexation, not getting impact fee credit for that park. So it's important to note that piece.
So we're double dipping.
No, it's an annexation requirement, not related to, yes. Goal 12, policy 17, identified, indicating that 15% of the working aged Hayden residents also work and live in the city of Hayden. That's from chapter 8 of the comprehensive plan. They identify that 86% of the people that were employed in Hayden live somewhere else. So again, that's part of that traffic conversation. They go on to state that one of Hayden Sky PUD's objective is to create several different housing options on smaller lots in an effort to keep the final sales price of the homes well below the current median home price. We talked about the zone designations, and I'm not going to reiterate those. Everybody knows that the single family is for your classic house, and mixed use allows for commercial or residential multifamily. Fourplexes are allowed in mixed use, and they are not allowed in any of the other single-family residential zone designations, hence that mixed-use piece, and then light industrial as well. So then the purpose, and the part that I want to point out in the purpose of the PUD is that although there are A through E opportunities to meet the purpose, the applicant is only required to meet one of them. They actually go through in their narrative and identify how they may or may not meet A through E. So, so with respect to A, they're providing a variety of sizes of lots and homes. The annexation agreement limited the density to 4 dwelling units per acre, and as proposed, the 412 dwelling units on this 127 acre site has a density of 3.24 dwelling units per acre. If you added the additional 23 acres that are in the commercial that were annexed as this whole property was annexed at 4 dwelling units per acre, the commercial zone doesn't allow for any residential to date. So if you added those 23 acres in, this would actually be a density of 2.75 dwelling units per acre. The applicant has requested to waive the minimum lot size in the single-family residential in accordance with 1164E. And lot sizes as proposed range from 5,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet, with an average of about 6,500. The PUD has a 25-foot perimeter setback and landscape buffer, which means that 25 feet around the perimeter of the PUD is a no-build zone. Can't have any structures in that area, so by essence, it is open space. And it has a landscape buffer component within that 25 feet. There are 2 parks centered on Dakota Avenue, and they're proposing multimodal pathways and sidewalks throughout the PUD, as well as connecting with already existing paths on Hayden Avenue and in Carrington. So as Jeremy noted, that C wasn't really pertinent to this particular project. It is relatively flat, and that stormwater drainage would be addressed at construction plan submittal. And then D and E, the design is based on the city's comprehensive plan's preferred land use patterns, and again, creating those housing for a community with a wider range of housing options. So then that was A of the standards of approval for a PUD. B talks about the proposed development. Does it or does it not advance the general welfare of the community? So again, they're attempting to offer that variety of housing types and price points and not create additional density. So as Mr. Truzoli noted, this PUD is not asking for density bonuses. They're not asking for an increase in density from what was allowed in the underlying zones. Hayden Sky, as proposed, provides for nearly 13.7% open space in addition to parks impact fees to be collected at the time of each building permit. That 13.7% open space is in dedicated green space tracts and in the parkland. So that doesn't count in that 25-foot setback area, and it doesn't count the 55% open space required on each residential lot. The TIA identifies additional mitigations at the intersections of Hutter and Hayden and Carrington and Hayden. And the boundary line adjustment code requires the frontage improvements and sewer connections at a minimum shall be included in the construction. Boundary line adjustment code is a part of the subdivision code, and it recognizes that if you do a boundary line adjustment on property, within 3 years of that boundary line adjustment, if you subdivide one of the parcels, you need to go back and do the frontage improvements on the other parcel that was part of the BLA. So the frontage between Hutter and Hayden Hutter and Carrington along Hayden is required to get constructed per the boundary line adjustment code and the subdivision code to the typical section of Hayden Avenue, the half width of the typical section. The benefits and combinations of land uses and the relationship of the land uses in the surrounding area, do they justify or don't they justify the deviation from the standard zoning district regulations? So the light industrial area is about 16 acres and the single family residential area is about 111 acres. Policy number 12 encourages rezoning and zoning text amendments to support the creation of strategic nodes, higher density development transition zones between residential and industrial uses, which is pretty much this full distance here where you've got that residential butted up against light industrial. So then, in the planned unit development code, it recognizes that you can have residential developments that include a variety of residential housing stock types. And you can have non-residential uses that have commercial and commercial buildings, light industrial uses, recreation uses. Up to 10% of the gross land area in a residential planned unit development can be utilized toward non-residential, and up to 10% of the gross land area of non-residential could be used for residential. In other words, you can massage your planned unit development up to 10% of the gross land area underneath to a different land use type than what the zone automatically allows for. So in a residential PUD, are they or are they not appropriate and compatible within the PUD and with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map? Well, this piece of property butts up to the county west of Hutter and in the airport. So we have to pull in kind of the airport's future land use map. That's that really interesting purple and gray and black object. And then the future land use map of the city of Hayden, which shows that mixed use, single family residential, and light industrial. Mr. Shuzuli talked about the kind of the structure and design of the 4 dwelling units in each structure and how they're going to have a common driveway, rear loaded lots from the driveway within, and have green space dedicated in the middle. I anticipate that part of the rest of this area most likely will be some kind of landscape around there as well, even though it doesn't show up as green, because those are going to be front yards and side yards. And we would anticipate that those kind of plans would come as part of a future site plan for the project site. This is part of that back and forth we just talked about the fact that, you know, you're kind of looking at the fact that this black line represents where the light industrial zone is and where the single family residential zone is. And if you kind of push those acreages around, they're still well in the 16 acres and the 111 acres that are identified in that area for the PUD. And this lot, this line here represents one of the airport runway protection zones, and we couldn't have residential within that area, hence why this space is a light green to recognize that green space tract, a non-buildable lot. So then looking at the lot analysis, you know, we've got single family residential existing with 111 acres of existing single family R1 zone, and they're proposing 44.29 acres minus road after roads. Those townhomes are proposed on 10.5 acres. There's currently 0 acres of mixed use. Now again, that's all about structure type. Because they're proposing fourplexes, and fourplexes are only allowed in the mixed use zone, they can be 10% of, you know, the underlying zone. So 10% of 111 acres is 11.1 acres. They're proposing 10.5. They're well within that 10% threshold. The industrial, they have 16 acres today, and they're proposing 8.4 acres. They have no parkland out there today, but they're proposing 15 acres. So the uses are or are not intended to serve principally the owners, residents, or occupants of the PUD. The proposed uses of the light industrial are for self-storage primarily for the residents of the PUD, but not restricted to just the owners. The uses as proposed are planned or not planned as an integral part of the planned unit development. So the design as proposed is to integrally allow for a variety of park uses, as Mr. Truzuli noted, and connections, and to buffer more intense uses along the commercial on Hayden Avenue and the light industrial corridor of Phantom. And the individual access points to the collectors will be limited. And then again, the varying price points is to hopefully foster more residents of Hayden to work in Hayden as proposed. And then number 4, the uses are or are not located and so designed as to provide suitable access to collector or arterial streets without creating congestion or traffic hazards. So access to the site will be primarily from Carrington Street with secondary access from Hayden through Downing Lane. Downing shall be a right in and a right out. Fire and City of Hayden access policy shall be followed, requiring 2 access points with the development of the first phase of the project. And then the transportation impact analysis was about 330 plus or minus pages long. And it reviewed intersection and road segments. It identified existing conditions and it provided mitigation direction or requirements. So this was figure 1.1 in the transportation impact analysis. It shows the intersections that were reviewed as part of the analysis and the road segments that were reviewed as part of the analysis. And this is the proposed kind of location of the site of development. They go all the way out to 41 to the west and all the way out to Highway 95 to the east, Prairie to the south, and 7 intersections between, or 8. So there's 10 intersections total. Can't count today. In the conclusions, starting on page 33 of the PDF, which I think is more like page 29 or 30 of the actual document itself, it identified the existing conditions. It identified that all signalized intersections today operate at a level of service D or better during both the AM and the PM peak hours. But it identified that all the non-signalized intersections operate at a level of service F during the AM and peak hours. All of them today. Meyer Road and Hayden Avenue, Hutter and Hayden, Atlas and Hayden, and Ramsey and Hayden. It did also identify that all the roadway segments operate at a level of service C or better. It goes on to state that mitigation measures, as Mr. Olson identified already, that Hutter and Hayden should have a temporary signal. And part of the reason that that says temporary and not a permanent signal or a permanent roundabout is we're trying to figure out what the heck we're actually doing with Hutter, because you don't want to put something permanent in and have to tear it out. That is not a good use of anybody's money, in my opinion. Carrington Street and Hayden Avenue, again, they propose a roundabout or a signal. And Atlas Road and Hayden Avenue, they did recommend that it should happen sooner than later, something at that intersection, but no specific required recommended mitigation as part of this analysis. And then again, the roadway segments, they do identify that they would like to see a 2-way left turn lane recommended sooner than later, although it's not a requirement of this mitigation. Rob is right, our city engineer is in the audience. They're required to build the half width of a 5-lane section, correct?
That's correct.
In front of the property.
Just along their property frontage.
Along their property frontage, which runs from Hutter to Carrington, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. They proposed a kind of a phasing plan. The phasing plan is really at the 5,000 foot level. When you get into the final planned unit development, they will really put the phasing plan into pieces that say, okay, I need to build this and this and this to make this phase work. It might not be in that phase, but it might be things on the offsite that need to be happening as part of this phase. That's not a part that happens at the preliminary planned unit development kind of concept phase. It'll happen at the next part. They did note that should this be approved and they get the next steps completed, that they hope to begin construction in 2024. So the non-residential uses are identified in one lot, that's the blue area up here, north of Phantom Avenue. So Phantom will continue from Carrington subdivision to the east, and it will actually continue from Phantom, that is east of Atlas. Eventually it'll connect all the way through onto Dakota Avenue, and they will meet kind of up here together, and then they'll extend to the north end of the planned unit development kind of butted up against the south edge of the airport property in the county. The area that you see here is the setback area that's a no-build zone for any structures that the annexation agreement required them to set back from Hutter Road in anticipation of a Hutter bypass. And then Downing to the north that kind of comes up and connects into Phantom. That's an extension of Downing that is south of Hayden Avenue that will come up from projects that will be developed in that direction. Landscape and setback buffers in the light industrial are required as part of any development of the light industrial zone. And we talked about Phantom. So then D says that you have to meet the conditions of special use permit. And so when you have a project of this size, it has parks in it, it has sewer, it has transportation in it, it has both residential and non-residential in it, you hit pretty much the comp plan. So it's pretty much a soup to nuts with goals and policies that could apply to this project. Again, the definitions of the 3 zone designations that are in the comprehensive plan. Chapters that were identified in the staff review that could apply from the comprehensive plan as part of the review of this project. Zone definitions were provided on page 21 of the staff review. They didn't request any additional exceptions to setbacks or any of the other design standards of the zone that's in the code. So, you know, they're still having that 55% open space as proposed. They still have maximum building heights of 35 feet and 20 feet on their accessory buildings. They still have the required 15-foot setbacks from flanking streets, 25-foot setbacks from the front and the rear, and 10 feet from the side yard setbacks. They requested no additional variances except the minimum lot sizes, just as a clarification of the zones. Accessory dwelling units are allowed on single-family residential lots when other design standards are met in the code. The only area that may have height restrictions is up here near the airport, and they would have to go to the airport and get sign-offs in that light industrial area at the time of development. So then with respect to the other agencies and other services that are provided, water and sewer, Hayden Lake Irrigation District is the water purveyor. There's an existing well on site. They're in negotiations, working through being annexed into the Hayden Lake Irrigation District and disposition of that well. City is the sewer purveyor, and the entire site is within the H7 sewer basin. At time of subdivision, again, final plan unit development and first phase of the subdivision, they'll get a will serve letter to move that process forward at that time. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District is the fire provider, and streets shall be constructed in accordance with the adopted typical sections. Again, no variation to street typical sections was requested. And then the design and planning, you know, is it incompatible with the location, setting, and existing uses? And the intended character and the analysis has been pretty much done throughout the staff review and what you've heard tonight. So notice was sent to 28 public agencies. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office responded, HARBS responded, DEQ responded, Department of Water Resources, Hayden Lake Irrigation District, Charter, and Avondale Irrigation District responded. Public comments for the Planning Zoning Commission prior to their public hearing, or at their public hearing, they had no members of the public that were in favor at the time of the meeting. They had 2 comments that were received that were neutral to the request, and they had 3 comments that were received in opposition. These 2 here at the bottom were read into the record because they were received after the cutoff for written notices to the city in order to make council packets or planning and zoning packets, but they were read into the record. So for tonight's meeting, we had the same kind of quirky thing happen. I can find that in just a moment. We actually had 2 comments that came in, not one. I was sitting over there going, I know there's another one. One of them was an agency comment from the Coeur d'Alene Airport. In the planning went forward, there was kind of a quirk in the, Michael's gonna love me because I keep talking. There was a quirk in the coloring, so it was misleading. And they met with them again, and this is the follow-up from the airport with regards to that request. And then the second comment was from a resident, I think, was from somebody, that came in late last week after the cutoff period as well.
Thank you.
And so it would be read into the record too at the mayor's discretion.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
So the response from the Coeur d'Alene Airport requests a navigation easement. If they're unaware, they already have one. Be recorded covering the entire project. That was a requirement of the annexation agreement. And they respect the change in location of the light industrial moving to the north side of the project, creating that essential buffer zone between the airport and the residential area. So there are staff recommended conditions of approval that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to include. And I won't go over all of those either. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended one additional condition of approval in their recommendation, that at the time of final plat, or at the time of final planned unit development applications, part of their application, the applicant shall provide documentation that the applicant developer owner has contacted Connect Kootenai, which we all recognize is no longer in existence, but there are members of the group that still work on this kind of activity, and possibly others, in order to provide for a method to make a portion of the proposed housing available to actual residents of the community. So the City Council may grant approval in principle for the preliminary development plan based on the following findings, A through D, and D includes 1, 2, 3. And then the possible motions of the City Council, should you wish to approve it, continue it, or disapprove it, and reasons why. I stand for questions.
Any questions, Donna?
Yeah. This letter that you handed out here, it's comment, where'd it go? We should absolutely not be building more homes in Hayden until it's absolutely certain that we have the ability to properly dispose of our current sewage. Let me back up a minute. My first concern, or the summer priority of City Planning Committee should be, where'd it go? Something about the waste, okay, the smell that emanates from the waste from Harbs up there. And it's not so much an ability to dispose of it, it's more of the processing process that wafts through the area, isn't it? Because she says, until it is absolutely certain we have the ability to properly dispose of our current sewage. Is it the smell that emanates, a disposal, or a processing issue?
From the treatment plant?
Yeah. The letter here is basically saying that, you know, overall, I'm not against it, but some concerns. And then obviously it's the intersection of Hayden and Hutter. But then the summer, the whole Rathroom Prairie smelt like human waste. This is a huge concern and should be of top priority to the City Planning Committee. We should absolutely not be building more homes in Hayden until it is absolutely certain that we have the ability to properly dispose of our current sewage.
I think that's the reason that Harb's comment is a request for an odor easement in relationship to these properties that are near the treatment plant.
So it's not, to address the issue of properly disposing, we do have the ability to properly dispose of it. It's the processing of the waste that is creating the odor.
And Ed, I can't speak for the treatment plant, but I do know that, excuse me, because of the construction and bringing that system online, there's a number of things that had to be worked. I mean, it's not, you're operating a whole new system, right? They had to get that whole system in balance. And there was things that did take place that did create problems, that did create odor. So I can't say yes or no that it will be better, but likely won't be worse in the future. How's that?
I think the concern of this is we're talking about ability to properly, we have the ability to dispose of it, okay?
It says that she lives in Carrington, so
Right.
right next door.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But my point is, and I don't know if she is watching, seeing or whatever, that maybe alleviate the concern or point that she's making here. We do have the ability to dispose of it. That's not what's causing the smell. The processing is what's causing the smell.
I can maybe
Yeah.
shed some light,
Yeah.
being a member of the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board. This last summer, as Alan described, we had to upgrade $22 million phase to meet the requirements of the EPA for discharge in the Spokane River. And one of the things we did add was a solar dryer. And it was a way to reduce our costs. And the solar dryer is like a big old sunroom or greenhouse, so we put the solid waste in and it dries it. We did have an issue with being able to process this dark matter that was water laden, and that did create a smell. And it did take, I don't know how long, but it did create a problem. We felt that that was temporary until we had the solar dryer up and running properly. So we did have some glitches. And there will be some times when we have some glitches. And if you're going to buy near a sewer plant, guess what you get?
Okay, any other questions for Donna?
Donna, back the water source, there's an existing well, right? When this thing is fully built out, did I hear you say that well could support the water supply, or we're gonna have to?
I said that the applicant and owner were in negotiations with Hayden Lake Irrigation District to the disposition of that well. That's what I said.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sandra?
Yes, I wanted to piggyback on that, the sewer issue. I remember last year, a resident of Strawberry Fields contacting me and telling me that the smell was overwhelming even that far. So this is something that we do need to pay attention to. Question for Donna. I don't know if this is a question for you or for Jeremy. I just thought of it while you were up here. But how many jobs will the self-serve storage generate that's on the back there?
I can't speak to the, I can't speak to that. I don't know the answer.
Okay. Okay, because this was listed as one of the solutions for people kind of living there and working there. And then how long is the back alley of the townhomes?
And I would push that to Jeremy to answer at the time of his rebuttal.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ed?
Yeah. Just so I understand it correctly, the developer is willing to fund the intersections and the roadway that we talked about in addition to impact fees. In addition to the normal impact fees, the funding of the intersections and roadway that was presented is not using those impact fees, it's in addition to the, am I understanding that correctly?
I'm going to defer to Alan and Rob for that.
I'm not familiar with, I'm not the one who deals with the impact fees, so somebody's else going to have to answer that, but
We'll probably have to huddle up internally.
This development is required, as indicated during the presentation, to do traffic mitigation as well as pay impact fees. That is what you heard.
but it doesn't mean, I don't think, that those mitigations have to be 100%
I'm
100%
going to guess this goes to Jeremy and Mr. Olson then, because when Mr. Olson made his presentation about numbers 1 and 2, if I saw that correctly, the developer was willing to fund 1 and 2.
No, what he was outlining for you is what the traffic impact analysis recommended with regards to mitigation. He wasn't making concessions at this point on behalf of the developer. He was outlining for you what the traffic impact analysis was indicating will be needed for mitigation, and he can address that in rebuttal as well.
If he could, yeah, because and if he could put that slide back up when he does, because it looked to me as though it said that they were willing to fund numbers 1 and 2, and that 3 and 4 were be negotiated or whatever. But my question is, if that is the case, that they are willing to fund 1 and 2, it is separate from the normal impact fees for each lot.
Ed, what I saw on the slide was that they anticipated $1.5 million in impact fees based on the build out of this development. So the question would be, would there be additional money than the $1.5 million to help mitigate traffic issues?
I'm going to ask, I guess, when you can clarify that when we get up, because and if we can put that slide up to discuss that maybe.
Okay, any other questions for Donna? Donna, that was an absolute Herculean effort. That was a ton of work. Thank you.
So which slide would you like to, do you want me to leave any slide up during
Well,
like testimony?
let's go to public comment and then we'll figure that out, okay?
5-minute break.
Okay, we have a request for a break, 7 o'clock, good? All right, we're gonna take a break until 7 PM.
Good idea. Good idea.
Okay, we're resuming our city council meeting, please. I believe we left off, Donna had concluded the staff presentation. And now we're going to move into the public comment. Just as a reminder, if there are public comments, it is directed to council. Commenters must complete a public hearing comment form. Is Sentinel still in the audience? He disappear on me? All right, I'll fill out a card for him. Public comment we heard in order of those in support, uncommitted, and then opposed, and commenters must testify at the podium, so remarks can be picked up in the recorder. Fonda, question for you. I have a person who has just submitted in writing. Do I need to read these?
Yeah, please read their name and address, and you can read that into the record.
And then as far as the one that came on the letter, can I summarize? Do I need to read? No?
You can summarize that, and I think Ed actually did a really good job of almost reading.
Yeah, all right. So we will start with, is it Aaron Boatman?
I didn't wish to go first. I kind of wanted to hear what other people had to say as I put myself in a neutral position. Is it okay if I pass and then come back to it?
Well, the rules are supposed to be for, yeah, in support, uncommitted, and opposed, and you're the only one that's not opposed.
Oh, okay. Well, then you can put me in opposed then. I marked neutral.
So now you wish to be against?
Yeah, put me through opposed.
Now, I could call you first anyway. But I will not. I will not. I will respect your desires. All right, so I'm going to just summarize. We have Laura Seats email. Her, I assume Laura is a her, resident of Carrington Meadows. The concerns, whether there's infrastructure to accommodate more housing. As has been touched on by Ed, concerned about building more homes until she believes we have the ability to properly dispose of sewer. Another concern she has is in regard to Hayden Avenue and the traffic on it. And then lastly, she is opposed to proposed fourplexes. We have a card from Sentinel Trust on Delgrave. I looked that up. He is in the area of impact. In fact, I looked up everybody's. Everyone here tonight is in the area of impact. Opposed cites 9 traffic deaths, Hayden Avenue, 2023, sewer problems unresolved. Developments should implement a buffer zone in between developments and a need for roundabouts on Hayden. So that leaves us with Debbie Logs Dunn.
She did not want to speak.
And she did not want to speak. How about that? I could read my own form here. So, all right, Aaron, you're up.
Where do I go? Stand over here?
Yes, please. Let us know, before you speak, let us know your address, please, and your name.
Aaron Boatman, 9757 North Heston Loop. I live in Carrington Meadows, Hayden, Idaho. I guess some of my questions are just pertaining, so I have some roundabout
I'll grab that
questions here. The first one, so we bought in Carrington Meadows and we were told that there would be a park at the end. When I came to the city and I got my plat map, that park was later turned into a storage unit. Are you guys familiar with this? Or rezoned for storage units, and we were told that the park would now be across the street. I take it that is this park? Is that correct? I don't know who to propose that question
So
to.
this is not a time for questions.
Oh.
If you have questions, you can come to City Hall and speak with city staff. This is the
Okay.
time to make public comment.
Yeah, or email us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess under my presumption, this is the park. It is not, okay, I see Raven Hedge. So my concern was that, that if this thing gets turned down, then we lose our park, I guess was my.
If you leave us your email, I'll ask, please, for Donna to send you an email. I think I know where the park is, but I don't want to misspeak.
So I can't ask any questions?
You can ask
No, I can
questions.
just make comments. Okay, so let me just look at this.
We can ask questions to city council. We just may or may not be able to answer.
Okay. I will say that the comment about moving into an area by a waste treatment facility, you should just expect that or know that that may happen. I feel that that is not a great comment, sir. I appreciate that you're on the board and that you spoke your mind, but us living there this summer, it's kind of sucked. Every time we'd go outside and play volleyball, it stunk. And we were all questioning like, where'd this come from? Is this from us or from whatever? So I'm glad that they worked on the problem. I didn't really know that there was a waste treatment facility that far up. We moved from CDA Place, but I guess it is what it is. But if this was to happen again, I would hope that you put your best efforts forward, because smelling poop is not a good idea on a daily basis. I didn't pay an astronomical amount of money to have that. Also, I was not told nor disclosed about a waste treatment facility in the area. So anyways, and maybe we should add that when you live within 15 miles of a waste treatment facility, that the city of Hayden would like to disclose to you that you've purchased in this corridor, and please sign appropriately. In regards to traffic, Atlas and Hayden is a freaking nightmare. It is like avenging death to get out of there when you're going to school with my little ones. I see the kids waiting at the bus stop at the front. It's not great. I would say that is the armpit of Hayden at the time. And so we often will go down to Prairie just to force rights to try to get through there. Please give that your utmost attention, whether this goes through or not. I had some questions about parks, but I won't go there. Will this park be managed by the city, or will this be another HOA park? Do you guys know the answer to that one?
City park.
It'll be a city park? Okay, great. Because our current little park that we're dealing with the HOA issues, and they don't want to do anything with it and whatever. I'm bummed to hear that this would take 7 to 10 years. We were kind of expecting that park that was at the end there to be done by the third phase of our development, which would have been in my daughter's enjoyment time. She's 9 now. We were expecting to, as the growth that it would be almost done by the end of the next year. So 11th through high school, like the park's done. And now we got this park transferred over here, and now they're talking 7 to 10 years. It won't be enjoyable in my kid's lifetime. So now we're looking at the next generation, and I feel that that's a disservice to us, is what we were told when we purchased. So that's a bummer. Maybe roads first, parks, and then they can build the houses and make their money. I understand that may not be in their best interest, but maybe in ours, and we could work some money back and forth. Okay, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, I believe we're at the point of the hearing where the applicant can elect to rebut any comments that have been made.
Those are the only comments?
That's it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we would just want to, do you want to close the public hearing? Or, I mean, excuse me, after as far as testimony. Sorry about that. My apologies.
If we
Never
mailed
mind.
in the letter that opposed it, is it just not here?
It's in the packet.
Oh, so those aren't gonna be read?
No,
But they're all reviewed by city council.
that's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question
Of,
about this public comment? I just want a number summary of those in support, those neutral, those opposed.
I don't have a tally for you.
Anybody?
As far as tonight goes in
Yeah.
the meeting?
Well, you said some were submitted in the packet, and made it into the packet, and then we only had a couple tonight, right?
Correct. We didn't have, if it got mailed, it didn't, I haven't seen it. So if you mailed it, I haven't seen it. So if you want to testify tonight on whatever you put in your letter that we have not received, it would probably be good.
Okay, can I do that, or?
Yes, of course. Would you do me a favor? There's a card that says public hearing comment form. Would you mind scribbling on that for us, please? So we have it for our records.
So we did not receive, while she's doing that, we didn't receive any public comments due by the date that they were due. This project site has been posted on Hutter Avenue, Hayden Avenue, and Carrington Street, all 3 streets, and everyone within 300 radius feet of the exterior boundaries of the project were notified by mail. It's been published in the Coeur d'Alene Press and sent to a variety of media outlets, part of them you see here tonight, I'm sure. So and we literally, if we get them up until today, if I've got them by email, by phone, by fax, by whatever, in my mailbox, you guys see them. I bring them with me. So we work really, really, really hard, whereas I have seen in other jurisdictions that if you don't make the cutoff for the written, it doesn't get brought forward. So, yeah, I don't have it.
Okay, thanks. Can we collect the card from you?
Yeah, I'm just, sorry, I forgot what it was called.
Thanks, and sorry we didn't get your letter. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, Krista. This is the other form that's up there. We need to figure that.
Right on the top.
Yep, I will. All right.
Are you for, against, or neutral?
Yeah, so is this a for, neutral, against?
Opposed.
All right. Give me a second, please. And, okay, so we have Krista Frost. Krista, would you give us your name and your address for the record, please?
Krista Frost, 10446 Belgrave Loop.
And Belgrave Loop's part of the Carrington, isn't it?
Yes, we
All right,
are right on.
okay. The floor is yours.
I just am curious, I guess opposed because of the road infrastructure right now being an F. I was under the impression or thought that it had to be mitigated to a C before you could do additional building. Is that? So usually you have to have signaled in intersections and things like that. Sorry, my husband is the one that usually does this stuff. He's out of town. He's a civil engineer, so I'm speaking to something I don't know as much about. Yeah, just that if they're already at a service level less than a C, then maybe a developer or somebody needs to install intersections prior to development. Is that not the case in Hayden, or do you know?
I can't answer that myself. I can tell you that,
There are improvements that are in the traffic impact that need to be mitigated. They would be mitigated on the timeline that was given in that report. And I believe that Donna would have better on this, that most of those were supposed to be mitigated at the time of the first plat, first phase.
so,
Yes, they will be, because I can wash dishes and watch accidents happen out my window often. And it takes, at times, 15 minutes to get from Hutter onto Hayden to come home. So a few minutes I could handle, but I've clocked it at over 15 more than one occasion. So, just in case you're aware. The smell, yes, that was something that was very, new. And it happened not just this summer, up until, like, there were times in December, November, December, January, that also still, there was not every day like it was this summer, but there were definitely days during the week where you go out around like the 4 or 5 o'clock when I'm coming home, that there's still smell. So I don't know where we're at with that cleaning up process. And then I also want to know about schools impact. Atlas is already very crowded. This is Lakeland. Does Rathdrum need to have a say in this, Lakeland School District, or because we can go anywhere, does it not matter what we're doing to the schools and kids? Adding this many more homes right there. I don't know if that's an impact or not. I don't know how that works. So, I guess that's, I don't know. That's really why I'm opposed. Traffic, smell.
school. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did good.
Okay. Now, the applicant, if you wish to rebut anything.
Yeah, for sure. Can I just, again, Jeremy Terzulli, for the record, can I get a point of clarification? How many public comments were received? I only got the one via email.
Correct.
That was it? That's all that came in? And then 2 people spoke at the podium tonight?
We've got 1, 2, 3, we've got 5 here.
But only 2 people spoke?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the record, Mr. Mayor, so you summarized a written comment off of each of those, but you did not read into the record names or in opposition to?
So in
On your
Laura's, I
comment cards.
did read name. And I guess if you want me to reiterate, she just says, I have some concerns though, so I'm gonna just, as a layman, say that's neutral. because.
Just make sure the comment and the name is read into the record so that the applicant has an opportunity to rebut what's on the comment card.
Okay, so for Laura's, I know I did, and I thought I also, if I didn't say his name, Sentinel Trust was the one that had the card with the 4 comments that were opposed.
Mr. Mayor? This letter from Laura Seitz, she says here, overall, never mind.
Okay,
Well, she says overall, I am not against the subdivision being built in this location. That's what she says in paragraph
right, and that's
2.
why I took it as neutral.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then
Press on,
I was,
please.
again, I'm a little surprised with the number of people in this room. It would appear that most people are on a fact-finding mission, and that seems to be what played out in the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, with the comments generally stating this could be worse, and I took that as a win. So I was going to try to expand on some of the comments from the public. The gentleman that spoke regarding his park, I believe in Carrington Meadows, being not built. We do in phase 1 have a park component to this. The park is going to build out over multiple phases, but phase 1 does have a park component to it. It's about half to maybe 35% of that lower park is part of phase 1. And just to reiterate, a lot of these finer details, if approved, would get worked out between preliminary approval and final approval. That's when we would meet with the Parks Commission, hopefully hold a town hall style meeting so people could come and say what they would like this park to look like, which components should go first. We're just not at that point yet. So, but there is a component, and I think that staff and the public would hold our feet to the fire on that, and we're aware of that. Regarding the schools, again, same thing. Everybody has been noticed on this. We're willing to have conversations with all the agencies as we move forward, if we move forward. Regarding the odor issue at the treatment plant, every treatment plant in our area from Coeur d'Alene to Post Falls to Hayden emits some odor, always. It's just the way it is. And this one, it sounds like Councilman Roeder said they were experiencing growing pains with the upgrade of the facility. The odors are usually not as bad as they were this summer, and it sounds like they're working through those. So that is just the way it goes. As far as the job creation with the self-storage, I'm not sure if I misrepresented that. I don't think I did. I'm not sure if it was, we're talking about the commercial component to the south, same property owner, not part of this PUD. We're talking about job creation, internal capture, and some synergy between those two. Self-storage facilities don't generate a lot of jobs. You typically have an on-site manager, some groundskeepers, snow removal people, that sort of thing, but typically they're a couple, 2, 3, 4 people can run a self-storage. So I'm not sure if I misspoke or if it was just misheard, but no, we're talking about the integration and the synergy between the commercial to the south and this development. So, point of clarification. As far as the traffic impact and the impact fees, once again, the next phase is where we believe all of that collaboration with city staff, with ITERIS as to when mitigations would need to come in. The thing about impact fees is they are not collected until time of building permit. So it's really hard to know what the overall build out of the impact fees. So if, and it's a big if, we move to the next phase, I believe we should be able to collaborate, this group, planning and zoning, city staff, as to what mitigation should happen right now. How do we, is there a way to take some impact fees now, throw them towards the developer so that he doesn't go bankrupt doing phase 1, get an intersection done, then Perhaps there's another lump sum of impact fees that give them credit towards future impact fees, but the impact fees are tricky because they do not get assessed until time of building permit. Infrastructure, everything goes in for phase one first. Impact fees get assessed at time of building permit. So I really feel like I'm not trying to bait and switch or dodge a question here. I just feel like that gets worked out at this next phase. And
Jeremy, you're getting out the ingredients, but everybody wants to know what the cookies are gonna taste like.
yeah, and I wish I could tell you, but I'm a really crappy baker, so you're probably not gonna like how they taste. That's what the engineers do and the attorneys, you know? I mean, if we get to the next step, you know, Ms. Jovic and the landowner's attorney, they're gonna become real friendly with each other as they work through a zoning development agreement. I'm sure you could knock somebody out if you hit them with that by the time it's all done.
Yep.
So any other questions or, yeah, go ahead.
Well, getting back, if you could put that slide up that Mr. Olson presented and talked about.
This is not my presentation,
Mr.
and I don't know how to flip back to mine. Is it on one of Donna's slides?
No, it was on one of Mr. Olson, when Mr. Olson came up to talk.
Okay, hold on, it's here, I got it, Donna. Wait, wrong one. Nope,
There's
wrong
one in very small font.
All right, which one?
That might be it that you were on.
That guy?
Yeah. Okay, developer will commit to funding 1 and 2 and is willing to discuss proportional share and advance contributions to 3 and 4. Commit to funding, is that with impact fees from there or commit to funding on out of their own pocket and then in addition to impact fees?
That's where I think that trading needs to come, because what if this project never moves past phase 2? What if the economy shifts? What if something happens? Those impact fees don't get collected until time of building permit.
Well,
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and part of that estimate is self-storage buildings that are assessed at a per square foot price for impact fees. So we took a real wide stab at what we think full build out of a self-storage facility would be. In addition to this, it's not part of this PUD. All of that commercial stuff that's not part of our PUD, they will also be assessed impact, traffic impact fees, and same property owner, but they're so, I know you want to know, and I just.
No, I'm just trying to understand here, because in my mind, and let me kind of lay out how I'm seeing this. You have the impact fees, that you pull the permit, you pay the fee.
Right.
Okay? And as I'm reading this, and then developer willing to commit funding, 1 and 2, where's that funding coming from?
For 3 and 4, we believe that funding is going to be that collaboration. How much of our impact fees are going to go towards this? We know these are direct impacts per the development, these 2 intersections. As impact fees come in, how much are being allocated over here?
Are you talking about 1 and 2 or 3 and 4?
1 and 2 are a given. We know those are a given. Those are
Who's going to pay
direct.
for those?
That would be the developer.
Out of their own pocket?
Right. That's what the TIA said.
But that's what I'm trying to understand. So phase 1 or 2, whatever it is, they're gonna be paying their impact fees, but they're not gonna be saying, hey, wait a minute, we gotta do this and do that on 1 and 2, give us back some of that money to pay for it. They're gonna commit to, let's just say, whatever it is, let's pull a number, $500,000, million, I don't care, pick a number for 1 and 2. They're saying, well, that's coming out of my pocket. We're not gonna expect you to give us credits or whatever on impact fees.
So here's where I'm getting out of my purview, and I think that's where the attorneys would have to hammer it out. I don't know if there's a double dipping component to that. I know in communication with our development team, we believe those are direct costs that will be associated with this project, and impact fees will be a separate thing.
Okay.
That's this group. But that's why Ms. Jovic will work with the attorney to make sure that if this project gets sold to somebody else that has a real slick attorney and says, you can't do, like, it better be airtight so that nobody can come back and call foul on the other.
Just made an interesting comment there about if the project gets sold to somebody else.
Projects get sold
I understand.
all the time.
I understand. I got you. But I mean, the suggestion of it even, I get that's how things work.
Don't read between the lines.
Well,
This
you
is
said-
me
you
associating
said it.
other deals I've done.
We all
Projects
know,
get
we all know
moved
the
all
world
time.
out there and how, like you say, the things happen. But let's just hope things go along as is being planned, type of thing. But I
Don't
got what
read
you're saying.
between the lines. I don't
Well, no,
have any
no.
insider
I just want to
information.
understand, and I think I understand it, that the developer is committing out of their own pocket for temporary signal prior to opening and carrying Hayden's signal or roundabout prior to opening.
Okay, any other questions for Jeremy?
Prior to opening year 2030, which is what the traffic impact analysis says. That's where I think the horse trading.
That'll be an issue in deliberation, I guess.
Okay.
Sandra?
Just one quick question. The townhomes, there's like an alley in the back for the garages. How long is that?
That's a drive aisle length or width?
Length?
I don't,
think it's just shy of 500 feet.
yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Drive aisle, that's a new word for me. Okay. 500 feet?
Just shy of 500. You got 400-foot deep lots, and then you got a right of way, so it's probably 460 anything.
Okay, thank you.
Plus, okay. Jeremy, I think we are exhausted with our questions, so thank you.
Are you sure?
Well, I believe we are.
All right.
All right,
I appreciate everyone's time.
I'm closing the public hearing. Our next step is for council to deliberate.
You want a particular slide up here?
Council, is there a slide that you'd like up? Maybe standards of approval? All right. So council, we can choose to proceed with deliberations or schedule them to a later date. So do we need a motion to deliberate? I didn't think so, but just checking. All right, so Matt, do you want to proceed with deliberations?
Yeah, I have, my thought, I have a couple of thoughts, but the main one is Mr. Tzuli, and did I get that right? Close? Close enough? All right. I want to make sure I get it right. He stated that there's going to be about 414
Units?
414 hookups, sewer hookups. And I know that that's going to take who knows how long. We have other projects that are ongoing other than this one. One of them is Hayden Canyon, and I know that will have 1,500 hookups roughly, because there's 1,500 homes. So we're pushing almost 2,000 just with those two developments. Also, it was stated that you did some research and found out from Harbs that we have about 700 hookups left right now for our capacity. Last Harbs meeting in Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, we authorized a $50,000 study to determine what the capacity is for our sewer plant treatment, not delivery, but for treatment. And I'm not sure, and I can't remember if that also looks at anticipated demand for the next year or 2 or 3 years. My concern is being fair and knowing what we have and then moving forward with additional building. And we already have things in the pipeline right now that we have to service. So where I'm coming from is this study's going to take 2 months is what I'm told. And I would like to have postpone this until the results of that study are done, so we kind of know where we're at with our sewer capacity. I'm not comfortable with not knowing where we're at exactly. I know there's a 2 million gallons a day, and I know we're at 172.5 gallons per day per residential unit, but there's some unknowns that need to be determined by the study. So where I'm leaning again is just to wait a couple of months until we get this report done to know where we stand and how many units we actually, or hookups that we have. I just don't want to overcommit. I'm not comfortable with that.
Any other comments?
Oh, me?
No, I was asking Matt.
I too am concerned with what Councilmember DePriest has brought up with how the traffic will be mitigated, how it will be paid for. We have to get creative now with paying for road upgrades, and I do have a concern in how, and I know that's something to be worked out, but it's an important aspect of moving forward is who's going to pay for what regarding the roads.
Okay. I'm going to skip over to Tom.
I'm wondering if I want to wait to hear what the other council members
Okay.
got to
I'll
say.
skip back over to Sandra.
Okay. So are we going to have a chance to speak again, or is this first thoughts?
I think this is our deliberation before we make a decision.
Okay, all right. So I was just going to say that this is a real tough one because basically we are going to face growth here because the property owner has the annexation agreement and they can build single-family homes by right. But saying that, I believe that the annexation agreement was generous and should be adhered to. So according to the findings in the memo, it says that the vision of the Hayden Sky is to create housing for a community in desperate need of a variety of housing options. But I haven't seen a study that validates what the need of housing options is. In the citizen survey, one of the highest responses was in favor of single-family housing on larger lots. So I don't have anything against apartments or townhomes because I've lived in both and enjoyed that lifestyle. But now I own a home for the first time and I'm happy to have the opportunity to not be bound by a landlord or an HOA. So there's nothing right or wrong about each housing option. So the question is here, what's best for Hayden and our future? So I was looking at the goals and policies. Goal number 2, it says comprehensive plan is a living document, serves as a guide for development. Components of the comprehensive plan are updated as necessary to reflect the community's vision. I was thinking community's vision. Well, in the survey, people asked for more single-family homes. And goal number 3, the next one, maintain an attractive and balanced mix of land uses, densities, and housing types, ensuring the future character of the community. And yes, that's, this does have a wide variety of housing, but we also have right across the street 144 apartments, and so I feel like Hayden overall does have variety. Single-family homes, I think for ensuring the future of the community, single-family homes bring in families, pride in home ownership, more freedom, because the need for an HOA is less. And then I'm concerned about this sewer problem and the smell. I mean, when that neighbor called to say they were overwhelmed by the smell and they were in Strawberry Fields, I didn't know, how to help them, how to answer that. And I think we need to be more careful to take care of that before we move on. And, even though people might have to sign an agreement, that's still asking a lot of them if they don't know the total impact. And to policy number 7 was to ensure adequate parks. And I'm concerned with the layout of these parks because it seems like part of it is very private. So those are my thoughts for right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to play the game. I'd like to hear what Tom has to say.
Shay, if you guys, City Council, can I ask you a question or a favor? I appreciate everybody's thoughts. There is a lot of information going on here tonight. One of the things I have found in my experience on planning and zoning is as we talk to our decision, that we should be looking at the findings and the standards of approval so that when we make a documented decision, the city can stand behind, I feel it meets the needs based on this and this and this. Not that the other comments aren't welcome. I'm just trying to maybe tighten up our decision-making a little bit here.
Well, okay, so, Mr. Mayor, I do have a prepared set of observations. And what I did is I went through, I didn't want to beleaguer the conversation with citing chapter and verse. I just went to the important stuff. And so I'll start off, I'm going to rearrange my way I deliver this, and I'm going to start off by saying, and this is for public consumption, for anybody watching this on the video, I want to remind everyone that I need my reading glasses, dang it. I want to remind everyone that Idaho laws have been written to respect private property rights. Growth is inevitable, and landowners have a right to develop their land. What we can do as a council is guide the tenor of that growth. I also want to say I'm a little bit surprised at the lack of public comment tonight. I did watch social media, and it blew up in the past few days, but nobody's here to actually, have a meaningful contribution to the discussion. So I'm going to get into this now, and council, I'll ask you to keep an eye on my words and to let me know if I'm going off the rails, okay? Because I'm still learning. So I focused on two standards of approval. One was the proposed preliminary plan unit development is consistent with the intent and purposes of this chapter. And I've read Idaho statute and I've read city statute. The applicant says the vision of Hayden Sky is to create housing for a community in desperate need of a wider range of housing options. And I want to thank you for all the hard work you did on this. It's obvious, it really is, and I respect that. My response is that there's no objective standard either for style or quantity in either state statute or our own codes for what a variety of housing options should look like. I challenge the statement desperate need, and if we were to pick a benchmark and say dwellings on less than 0.15 acres, I spent a few days looking at the GIS data for all of Kootenai County, so Rathdrum.
You need to make sure that your decision is based on the evidence in the record.
Okay, so the evidence in the record is a statement that there's a desperate need? Is that evidence in the record?
Yes.
Okay, so.
The words are in the record.
Okay, so it seems to me that there's already plenty of stock that meets that desperate need benchmark. The other thing is I've actually went out and I asked some realtors, what is the general demand? And almost without exception.
That's not.
Outside the record.
Outside record? Okay.
We have to make our decisions on what has been presented tonight.
Okay.
And what was given to us by the city.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for keeping me on track. Proposed development advances the general welfare of the community. Hayden Sky PUD is a direct attempt to offer a variety of housing types and price points within the city of Hayden. Got to make sure that I'm not going off. I will generally say that I don't think it's a true statement that we're providing a wide range of price points to hit that affordable mark. And that again is I can't say that. Okay. So then I'll piggyback on Councilman White's concerns about traffic. The fact that the Hayden community, through the citizen survey, has said that they prefer single-family homes on one home per lot. I will acknowledge the odor warning that Harb's delivered, and yeah, those are my observations.
Okay, Ed?
Okay, yeah, I will speak to the specific on the screen there at the end of my, hopefully not real lengthy. But let's kind of bounce around here maybe. The citizen survey, yes, the survey did show that they primarily want single-family homes, but what doesn't, let's say it all. Responses indicated desire to preserve open space and focus on single-family housing. 60% felt the city should support a variety of housing types beyond single-family. So just for complete issues there. I guess I need to ask this, and hopefully I can get some clarification on it. As it sits right now, single-family zoning, and it was brought up earlier, if denied, the way I understand it, the applicant can say, okay, I'm going to pound in, I'm going to mess with it and take out the park land and take out the commercial land and take out the roadway and all that other stuff, but I'm going to be able to get about 400 homes in anyway. And if we are going to, you know, if it were me, I'd say, I'm playing a game. I'm going to pound in what I can get, and that's going to be about 400, and as I understand it, they have the right to do that right now.
Yep.
Okay? No matter what we say. So we have an opportunity here to look at things and be creative, maybe, and look at the big picture. Okay? Well, what do we want? Okay, that is going to be developed eventually. We have an opportunity to hopefully manage it as best that we can, right here in what we're doing. As I indicated earlier, well, let's talk about the parks a minute ago. Every development, look at Stoddard, look at Broadmoor, look at Finucane, look at the parks, they are basically encapsulated in neighborhoods. They are primarily used by the people within those neighborhoods. If people from Finucane area want to go over and use Broadmoor, yeah, they have to make a trek over there. Same as if people were to want to use these parks from Broadmoor, want to come, yeah, they'd ride their bike or whatever, but they're accessible. But let's be honest about it. Most parks are encapsulated and used by in general, the surrounding neighborhoods. I don't know if the word is desperate need, but there is a need for a variety of price ranges of homes. And price range is usually dictated by lot size and dwelling size. Okay, if you can build a smaller house, chances are your costs aren't going to be as great, and you're going to be able to find the people who need that $300,000 house, that type of thing, or 300, whatever the price range may be. There is a need for a variety of price ranges. Okay. Now to my primary concern with this whole thing, because either way, I think there's going to be 400-ish dwellings put into that area. However, whether it's a PUD or whether it's single family, my main concern is primarily Hayden and Hutter. Okay, but most of us have probably been through that intersection a lot. Try going north and south and cutting across, let alone just getting on it. Okay, and the like. It is a nightmare. If this is approved, I would propose that in the negotiations or hopefully an agreement, a development agreement, I'd like to see at a minimum a four-way stop at Hayden and Hutter initially. Before construction even begins, okay? And maybe the same thing at Hayden and Atlas, stuff like that. So you stop those people who are flying east and west, okay? And allow traffic to flow better. Maybe before the third phase starts, you have a signal, a four-way signal, at least at Hayden and Hutter. Maybe even a temporary one, because I'm getting tired of ITD basically saying, hey, you can't do anything there because we're eventually 50 years from now, maybe going to build the Hutter bypass. And so they've got all of us hanging, having to worry about for them to get off the pooper and do something, which I don't think they're going to do. So we're being trapped in what we do. I'd like to put a permanent four-way signal there. But we kind of heard say, well, you know, you spend the money to do that, and then voila, ITD says we're building and it'll be there in 35 years, type of thing. So the traffic issue. If an arrangement can be made in the negotiation, and especially if the developer is willing to, out of their pocket, fund the stop signs and signalization that are going to come to us eventually down the road, whatever happens here, even if they'd say no way, eventually the taxpayers of Hayden are going to deal with those intersections. And we're seeing roundabouts and signalizations costing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. That if we have an opportunity to get significant funding, buy-in from a developer, and we're still going to get those 412 units regardless, I think it's fiscally prudent, fiscally conservative, okay, to take advantage of that opportunity. Okay, so, yeah, this is a tough one. And I say that, it seems like I say this every time. Yeah, I got into this because of growth and density. I was just playing with myself 3 years ago and concerned about what's happening, and all of a sudden I get recruited, and here I am sitting here, okay? Because growth and density is my thing. I don't want, in my world, we would shut the gates, okay? But we can't. Okay, and everybody who's been here 3 or 4 years wants to shut the gates. 5 or 10 years wants to shut the gates. I've been here 30 years. I want to shut the gates. I wanted to shut them 20 years ago. But that's not how it's going to work. Okay, that land is going to be developed. It's going to have roughly 400 dwelling units on it, however you do it. So we need to really think about it. I don't, Matt suggested tabling it until we get a report in. That's fine. But I still think that, I'm going to go back to what I said when I opened up. We're going to have at least 400 dwelling units on that land. And the applicant can say, I'm not playing the game, we're doing it. And we're not going to pay for the intersections, and we're not going to do that. So let's do something that a lot of people, let's not be so polarized, okay? Let's maybe find the middle and maybe save the taxpayers $1 million or so on those intersections and things like that, and seriously consider the realities here and look at this, because I said I'd get to that. The proposed PUD is consistent with the intent and purpose of, I believe it is, okay? The proposed development advances the general welfare, I believe it does. I believe it will provide a variety of price range and housing and things like that. The benefits combination of land use and interrelationships with land uses in the surrounding area justify the deviation from standard. They aren't asking for a whole heck of a lot of deviation, okay? If any, I don't know what, the proposed development at the proposed location meets the standards of approval, conditional use. I don't read that fast. What the heck? Where'd it go? Okay. Is that the next page?
Yeah, it's.
The proposal is in accordance with the general objectives with any specific objective of the I believe it is. If you look at the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances and things like that, the location, design, size of proposal are such that the development will not be adequately served by streets, police, fire. When we got the agency letters, and I don't think anybody put the kibosh on it. Everybody says that apparently they can serve it. The sheriff, if he thinks there's going to be more crime, you would think the sheriff would say, whoa, hold on. Fire, well, we can't, Nobody said that, okay? The design and planning to include construction, operation, maintenance at the site is not compatible with the location. It's vacant land right now, okay? Is that it? Is there a next page? All right. So yeah, do I think that they meet all of that? Yeah, I do, okay? Again, my bottom line, if we want to wait for the study, I'm not against that and the like, but again, my bottom line is I think however you look at it, we're going to end up with at least 400 units on that land. And the consequences thereof, if you want to call it that. The last time, and they'll shut up. Seriously, think about the ability to receive funding for those intersections, which are probably the most important aspect of this whole thing, if you ask me. Because it's coming anyway. Post Falls is going to hammer it in. Rathdrum's going to hammer it in. And unfortunately, in 10 years, Hayden and Hutter are going to be a big-time intersection. So do we want help, or do we want to come to the taxpayers in a couple years and say, hey, we need you to pony up? That's mine.
Okay. Thanks for using the standards.
Councilman White has her hand up.
Okay.
On two?
No. Sorry, the train jumped off the tracks for a second here. Go ahead, Sandy, please.
Yeah, I had one more comment. Could we get to the one requirement, from the Planning and Zoning Commission? Yes. Yes. So, no, the one about the, Yeah, Connect Kootenai.
That's what-
Right there.
That's right there, okay.
Kootenai doesn't exist anymore.
Right, Connect Kootenai doesn't exist anymore, but I just thought it was interesting the way it was worded. The application for the final planned unit development shall provide documentation that the applicant, developer, owner has contacted Connect Kootenai and possibly others in order to provide for a method to making a portion of the proposed housing available to actual residents of the community. And I'm thinking, if they're actual residents of the community, do they need housing? So I just thought that the wording of that was a little awkward. But Connect Kootenai no longer exists, but there are other organizations. But I just, this requirement to me is troubling because it's putting a condition in a housing development agreement that requires looking into low-income housing, and that's not in line with the goals and policies and character of Hayden. So planning and zoning should, in the future, refrain from doing this kind of a requirement. So I'm seriously displeased that this was even included, and this should be removed if this goes further.
Well, we can always make,
Donna, can you elaborate, please?
Well, first of all, I would say if any of you are planning on making a motion to approve the PPUD with the conditions as recommended, you can remove that condition.
I was going to say that.
Okay.
I thought of my idea. I have a question for city council. Since this is just an approval in principle step, so again, there's more approvals coming down the line. This is not the one and done. What's going to change based on the sewer study? If we get a sewer study in 2 months and it says, hey, there's plenty of sewer, or there's not so much sewer, how is that going to change what you guys would approve or not recommend approval for? Again, this is an approval in principle only. Can somebody answer that?
Mrs. Matt?
Well, maybe I can do that with, can you pull up section 11-7-3?
Section 11 dash.
Yeah, wasn't that up there?
Oh, okay, sorry. I've got to figure out this one. Is that 11? Yes.
Yeah, and number 2 there is that we have to adequately serve this development we have to adequately serve it with sewer. And I just, based on 11-7-3, I'm not sure we can. And I think we meet, I agree with that, I think we meet the other conditions of approval on this. But before, I'm just not comfortable moving forward with another development unless we know, can we service it? It just, because it's also a fairness to other developers who are already in the pipeline. So that's my concern, is that we wait at least 2 months, because that's what they said it would take, and see what the outcome, and maybe they'll say, we have plenty. But I would rather know that for sure, or no, we've got to start planning for an upgrade, and we have to add another 1,000 hookups to the sewer plant. And to me, that's a fundamental question that needs to be answered before we get moving to, but I do agree that I approve the other conditions. And lastly, I want to address the sewer, or the odor easement. And I'm going to ask Donna this. How many years have we required an odor easement with properties in and around the sewer plant?
Carrington Meadows was the first subdivision that required an odor easement on it. Carrington Meadows and Carrington Meadows first, second, and third.
So we have no other properties that have that? So then it should be up to the realtor to notify potential buyers that you have an odor easement, because it's on your deed.
It's on the plat.
Or on the plat that you have one, and that should be not our responsibility to go out and tell people, where you're gonna buy a house and whether, you're gonna smell the sewer smell or not. So I just wanted to point out that that's something that is required, and I think I did read that it would be required on this development also.
That's correct.
That's all I had.
Ed, you had another comment?
Well, yeah. I've been in on this discussion of late. I don't know if it was at Harb's where I observed it or if it's been at other places when this discussion about hookups and available hookups has come up. And I don't remember if it was developers, builders, whoever made the comment. They know the risk. They know that it's a first come, first serve. And I agree with you that there's already people in the pipeline that, okay, they're there. This is a 7 to 10 year proposed build out. They may not even be starting to ask for it. And I'm going to assume that they know that for the most part, they can only build so fast and that this development's building this fast and that if they run out, okay, that's the risk you run. But I also understand that, and correct me again if I'm wrong, because I've had so much input about various things here, that we can be ordered. Well, let's back up a step. It's coming anyway. I've said this a lot too. Law enforcement's told us, we are going to need more money. Give us your 5-year plan. Sewer's basically, eventually, we're going to need more capacity at the sewer. This isn't going to stop. Okay? We're going to be continually being told it's costing more. Okay? And Hayden, you have this extremely low levy rate compared to everybody else. Okay? You better catch up. And if we don't, in the sewer and things like that, if I'm not misunderstanding it, we can be court ordered to do it. The court can order you. We can run a bond and the people can say, no way. And then the court can say, yes way, and force it. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay? So we're looking at a lot of things here that I'd rather have it in our hands where we have somewhat of an ability than to push it down and try and stop things, and then the court eventually saying, folks, I don't care what you say, the state court of Idaho or wherever it is, we're ordering you to put a surcharge or charge on your sewer bills to pay for the upgrade that's needed. Okay, or whatever manner that would happen. We're gonna be paying for this stuff. And I don't want to pay more. I don't like it. But again, as we all know in life, most things aren't even in our hands. Okay, so I guess that's that.
Mayor, one last comment, and this is what concerns me. The new Metro car wash on Highway 95 took 200 residential hookups, one project. That's my concern. I don't want to be way behind the 8 ball, but we need to know where we're at. That's my point with having the study.
Do you think, though, that, if we're looking at a 7 to 10 year build out, and you get the report in 2 months and it says sewer's short, can Harbs then adequately plan for that and the other expansion going on in Hayden and get that built? I share everybody's concerns here, absolutely, and trust me, I'm the last one that wants to see the prairie turn into a parking lot, if you will, with houses and what have you. But these issues being brought up, regardless of their outcome, don't change a lot of the things that Ed has brought up. So we can get a report in 2 months that says we need more sewer. The houses aren't coming for 7 to 10, well, they're going to come sooner than that, but they won't be done for 7 to 10 years. In that time, the sewer hypothetically be upgraded. I'm just throwing that out as a thought. I'm not pushing council one way or the other. I'm just saying, let's think this through. What on the parameters using to make your decision, does it really change anything?
Well, I think it's prudent that we know if we're short because it takes time to implement, to increase a plant.
Right.
We have to do the studies, we've got to do the engineering, then we got to find the money to do that.
Right.
And so I think it's prudent to know where we're at before we move forward. I'm not saying don't move forward this development, but to be fair to the developers, let them know what we have.
Right, but let's just for S&G say that city council decides not to, the developer withdraws the PPUD, and they just start throwing up sticks and bricks, using R1 housing, you're still going to have the same exact problem in front of you. It's not changing any. That's what I'm trying to do is maybe I'm not being articulate enough, is we're tying a decision tonight to an outcome that is going to happen anyway. Does that make sense? In other words, let's just, like I said, let's say you guys say, we're going to delay this 2 months. The developer pulls out the PPUD request and just starts building houses as Ed described. That is a right they have as a landowner. They can start throwing up houses. Whether that report comes back one way or the other is not going to change the outcome of either way the developer or the landowner wants to do it.
If we're short and we need to increase capacity, we need to do it now then, if that's a problem. That's the idea of this study.
Understand.
Do you want to, say, hey, developers come in and build, and we don't know we have enough capacity? Is that fair to them?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I don't think it changes anything. Whether you guys recommend approval of this tonight or punt it for 2 months or not, the answer is not going to change. Good, yes, Sandra?
I would also like to comment on the standard approval number 2. And the sheriff's office also commented on their concern about increasing crime, that it would not increase in crime, I'm not wording that correctly, but that the crowded conditions would be more of a strain on them. And as far as number 3, intended character, again, with the way the survey is going, people would like to see more single-family homes rather than duplexes, townhomes. So, thank you.
I know we can't do this, and I'm not going to expect an answer, but I sure wish we could say, Mr., Miss, Ms., Mrs., he, she, they, you, whatever, developer, if we say no tonight, are you going to say, we're building houses, see ya, bye? Because as Matt basically just said, yes, we need to know. And if it comes back saying we're going to be short, we have to do something about it regardless of this development.
That's what I was trying to say.
If the survey or the report comes back and says, yeah, here's the situation and we're going to need to do X, and it's going to cost this, that, this, okay? In the scheme of things, this isn't even involved. We have to do it anyway. Okay, we would have to make the upgrades, we would have to find the money, we would have to do this anyway. And I said, I can see the writing on the wall here, okay, and that's fine. But again, I know that I'm a different kind of guy, but if it were me, I'd use a term and I'd say, have fun, and I'd do what I have the right to do. Instead of what we possibly could achieve with assistance in the funding that we're gonna need. We already have issues that we're looking for help from HURA and other places for road and the like issues that we can't afford. And we don't want to go to the people for bonds and taxes. We need to squeeze every dime and every penny we can get out of every resource we can. We have an opportunity here, I think, to do it.
Any other deliberations by council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple comments.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to say I'm very respectful of everything that has been stated today here at council, everybody. I want to cite from the citizen survey, okay? 79% of respondents strongly agreed or somewhat agreed that the city should be more concerned with the loss of open space than with housing developments. Under that was a bar graph. Second one was the city should allow only single-family housing on larger lots. 65% either strongly agree or somewhat agree. If you add in neutral, it's almost 85%. 2 lines down from that, the community will benefit if we allow more townhomes, duplexes, and small homes. Only 7% strongly agree. If you add in somewhat agree, it's 26%. If you add in neutral, it's 42%. So 60 I'm sorry, 58% either somewhat agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. I just want to cite those as statistics, since
I would-
that seems to be our North Star by which we make a lot of our decisions. Is that okay?
Let's just clarify that the citizen survey is not a part of the record for you to be considering with regards to this public hearing.
Okay, but it does go back, and I'm fine to be corrected on this. It does go back to the statement. Forgive me, lost my notes. I'll just recite it from memory. It advances the general welfare of the community. Can I?
You cannot use the citizen survey to evaluate whether or not this application advances the general welfare of the community because it's not a part of the record for this public hearing. You can only use the evidence that's been presented to you through this public hearing process.
So does it answer the statement desperate need?
All right, you cannot use the citizen survey. It's not in the
Okay,
record.
fair enough. I understand my limitations.
Mr. Mayor. I don't know what direction the council is leading, and I'm not subjecting to know what the answer to that is, but I do think that, given the testimony received tonight by the applicant, that should the file proceed from preliminary to final PUD, that an additional condition 11 should be added, requiring that the applicant enter into an agreement with the city between the preliminary PUD and the final PUD that stipulates the requirements to improve both the Hayden Avenue and Hutter, as well as the Carrington and Hayden intersections to the minimum standards as provided in the transportation impact analysis. That's my recommendation.
If so, I mean, you get pretty specific on these type of things. Like I said, at a minimum, four-way stops at those two intersections before construction even commences.
I would argue that we would lean on the transportation impact analysis as being the stipulation,
we're
which
locked-
does
we're-
show that it would be a higher degree of intersection control mechanisms.
Well, that's 2030. That's 6 years away.
No, she's saying enter into agreement to do it sooner, but have the actual mechanism utilized come from the recommendation in the traffic impact analysis.
You're talking about signal versus sign?
Right.
Okay. So again, what is, I'm kind of, that's kind of going like this with me. I'm a pretty simple guy.
So if the city chooses to do a four-way intersection, we certainly, on our own accord, could do that.
The study already supports it.
That's what I'm saying.
What we're saying is part of this condition, as elaborated and as provided by the applicant, that they are willing to do those things, that we memorialize that within this preliminary PUD so that the final PUD doesn't miss that.
Right. Yeah, okay.
And that would come in the form of a
But with the timeframe though?
Well, the timeframe certainly is part of that discussion that needs to happen with regard to the development agreement, but I still think the memorialization of that within this preliminary PUD, should it go forward, be included.
Memorialization part A, but Hayden, that intersection's already a mess. And it needs, as soon as possible, the best control we can get and phase through as it goes.
The only way you can force that conversation sooner rather than later is to add this condition.
That's okay, that's great direction, but I want to, me personally feel it's very important that that's in there and that gets dealt with if this were to, which I don't, if this were to.
She's helping you.
I know, I'm not arguing, I agree, but again, I need specificity.
Yeah.
Because we see a lot of stuff, well, this happened and that happened.
It's to have it negotiated sooner rather than later.
Mr. Mayor, this is simply a means to memorialize
Understand.
between the
I
preliminary and
understand.
the
We're
final.
adding
and
a
I believe
condition
this-
to a potential motion, I
The
understand.
specificity is already provided for within both plans.
Are there any other deliberations, or is council ready to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
Okay. I would like to make a motion to deny. I move to deny PZE 230115 Hayden Sky PUD request, finding it's not in accord with the standards of Hayden City Code based on the strain on our police and sewer and the desperate need for more housing more variety of housing has not been proven.
okay, there is a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we need a roll call vote. If you vote yes, you are agreeing with the motion, and if you vote no, you are disagreeing with the motion.
Council President Roder,
No.
Councilmember DePriest,
No.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
and Councilmember White. Yes. And Mayor Davis.
I'm voting no.
All right, let me take a shot at this. I'm going to make a motion, and I'm going to need help here, because it's probably going to be long, because I do believe it needs to be extremely specific. That we approve PZE 23-0115 Hayden Sky Preliminary Planned Unit Development with the conditions
Just say as amended, read into the record.
as, when you're talking about what you just, as read into the record by City Administrator Ailport, sorry, okay. Especially related to mitigation of identified traffic issues at the intersection of Hayden and Hutter, Hayden and Atlas, and so on.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, hey, I've got a,
may I just correct? It would just be a draft condition 11 that staff read into the record, specifically addressing Hayden and Hutter and Carrington and Hayden.
what she said.
And I have it written down if you'd like.
Okay. That's my motion.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'd like to make an amendment, proposed amendment to that.
Okay?
My amendment is that, based on, could you go back to the slide that was up before that showed section 1173 regarding the sewer? Is that, that we delay, I would, until we see the outcome of a study on our sewer plant, because the way I'm reading this is that we may not be able to adequately serve the development with sewer. And I don't know the answer to that question. And once we get the answer to that question, so the amendment to this is that we wait until that study is done, which is going to be about 2 months from now, and see the outcome of that. And then decide on approving this. So it's going to be to delay it for 2 months.
So I don't think we can do that. The motion is to approve something. You're making a motion to delay a decision. And
That's correct.
I can't mix those.
you can't mix
don't
those,
mix
yeah.
Okay, so then I
that's
can't
one
make
on
the
water.
amendment to that, so.
So can I ask you a clarifying question,
Sure.
Councilman Roder? Would it be helpful to make sure that that sewer study is completed between preliminary approval and going to final approval? Is it critical to you to have that previous to this preliminary PUD? Or would you like to just make sure it is absolutely eligible to you as consideration at final PUD time?
Because that could be a condition. You could say I assume, right? We could-
So
we could
the
amend-
reason I asked is, you know that the will serve letters clearly articulate that the city of Hayden only has authority to comment on our ability to serve sewer from the collection side.
Correct.
And that we do not have singular jurisdictional authority over HARBS, over the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, or whether or not treatment is available. So our will serve letters are very clear. It's first come, first serve, and that we can't comment on whether or not HARBS will have treatment at the time of your building permit application. So that's for the public and for the record. Second to that, though, you could decide to allow this preliminary PUD to just move forward to application. The only phase we're at right now is to allow them to move forward with a complete application, of which is still going to come back to you. But you could reserve specifically tonight for that final approval that you will be evaluating sewer capacity at that point.
So how do I intertwine that as an amendment to Ed's? I mean, I see everything else that that meet the standards of approval. I just want to make sure that we intertwine this study as
You
part
would
of the
add a-
decision-making.
You would add a condition that the final preliminary plat application and/or evaluation by planning and zoning and council would have to include that sewer analysis that Harbs is.
Would that suffice as an amendment?
Go ahead.
So I just throw this out there because I struggle a little bit with, yes, we can certainly require information to be brought into the record between the preliminary and the final preliminary PUD.
Plan.
That this information be in there, but I think the record needs to be acknowledged that the fact, that even if that information is here at the time of application, we still may be in a predicament where we are still looking at expansion of the sewer facilities. So while it's valuable information for potentially helping aid in decision, it doesn't necessarily correct at the building permit level. So I just throw that out there. But I am drafting a condition 12 right now.
Additionally, before a subdivision is built in this planned unit development, it will have to have will serves
Yes.
for the jurisdictions that serve it, which is the third layer down.
Right, so we're at preliminary
We're at one.
PUD, then they apply, then you have final PUD, and then you have subdivision application within final PUD. So you have two more layers after this before sewer analysis and/or capacity analysis is really ripe.
Correct.
Is there a usual or likely time frame from where we are now to application and to whatever, and will the 2-month sewer report most likely be in before that process? Yeah, so.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that that can be a vital part of the decision-making between now and whenever. So that I would agree with Ed's motion to approve that. So I'll remove my amendment and we'll just go forward, and sorry for the angst.
So, hold on, so do we have a second then?
I'll second it.
Okay, so before we do a roll call, is there any discussion?
Yes, I also wanted to know about the Connect Kootenai. Is that going to be also?
So you can make an amendment to the motion to
So
remove.
Ed, does your
planning and
motion
zoning.
remove the Connect Kootenai condition?
Sure, they don't even exist anymore.
Amenable.
It said others as well.
I would, personally, Sandra, I would just go ahead and make a formal amendment to remove the planning and zoning condition to this decision.
Okay, I move that we remove
That's cleaner.
the condition about contacting Connect Kootenai.
Is that?
So Ed's motion was a motion to approve with the conditions as recommended, including condition 11.
Yep.
Hers is a motion
I'll
to amend.
second it.
Okay, amend that motion to remove the Connect Kootenai condition, and that's been seconded, so make a
Okay.
roll call vote on that
On the amendment.
first.
On just the amendment.
On the amendment first.
Okay, is there any discussion on the amendment first? I'm hearing none. Can we get a roll call on the amendment, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
Okay, now, to the main motion. May we get a roll call vote, please?
Could you repeat the main motion, please?
So much bourbon.
Please. I agree. I'm gonna need one myself.
I'm kidding.
It's a motion to approve.
Yeah, it's a motion to approve PZE 2301115.
All right, just want to make sure.
With the
we're at
amendment,
finish
yeah,
line.
yeah.
Was that clear enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, now may we get a roll call vote, please?
All right, Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Schaefer?
No.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Yes. Okay, that closes public hearing number 4. I want to ask both our administrator and council, it has been suggested to delay the remainder of our agenda to the next meeting. Well, I guess one, is that allowed?
Yes, it is.
To do,
We have to amend the
make a motion to take the remainder of the action items and move them to the next council meeting.
Right. So that,
Do you need the Ramsey Road thing?
Which one is critical to you? Hold on one second.
Probably.
Yeah, we,
I don't think that works.
I don't know what,
I'm just asking the question.
we really should take on the new business items. I think we can certainly punt the unfinished business, should council seek to do so, but we have a necessary requirement to
That's
try
why
to
we're
bid out the
asking.
Ramsey Road
so
gravity
we
sewer
at
phase.
least have to do 6B.
All right, so my question
I
to
think-
council is everybody got the stamina to finish the entire agenda tonight? Are there parts of the agenda that you'd like to move to the next meeting?
Mr. Mayor, I'm okay with moving to the next meeting, whatever isn't absolutely necessary tonight,
Ed?
per staff's advisement.
I don't think anything are gonna take all that long, but if people want to move them, I don't have a problem with it, except for it appears as though Ramsey Road needs to be dealt with, so.
Sandra?
I'm okay with Ramsey Road, but I'm tired.
Matt?
Yeah, I think let's do 6B and we can postpone the other items to the next meeting.
Okay, so that's just an audible I'm going to make here?
Just have somebody make a motion to move all action items to the next meeting with the exception of 6B.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion?
Sure.
It's already been read for you.
Just say so moved.
So moved.
A second?
Second, yeah.
Okay, and a roll call, please.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is 6B, authorization to bid Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer Phase 2 project.
I've got about a 45-minute presentation.
You had a 45-minute presentation.
Notes, please.
You guys deserve an award. Boy, you guys are stalwart.
I didn't tell you that before you made the motion, so.
Is that his too?
Mayor and council, this is,
Anybody else?
I'm before you to get your consent to move forward with the bidding process for the Ramsey Gravity Sewer Phase 2 project, Dakota to Wyoming. We've been discussing this project for over 2 years. Everybody should be fairly familiar with it, but I wanted to make sure we were on the same deal because I have like 4 projects, right? And you're gonna go, well, which one is this? Or if you're not, then we could make this really quick. So the project we're talking about, these are the 4 projects. Let's see, where's my cursor at? Okay. This is phase 1A and B. This is phase 2. It's this purple gravity sewer line from Dakota to Wyoming. And that's the only thing we're talking about today. Go the right direction. Project has partners. It's, we're going to be partnering with, in a sense with Hayden Lake Irrigation District. The district will be installing new water mains on service lines in the project. It'll be awarded under a separate contract but the same contract, the same that we did with phase 1A, just this last summer. So for most of you, that should be fairly familiar. Also, we'll have Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board will be participating. They have a short section of force main. They want to get into Ramsey Road, just near Dakota, before we fix this road and put the pavement back on top of it, so they don't have to cut that road up in the near future to get that short section out from underneath the roadway. The engineer's estimate of cost, I'm going fast, so raise your hand if I lose you. Engineer's estimate of cost for the city's portion, this is just the city's portion because I said we're partnering on projects. The gravity sewer installation cost is estimated to be $2.572 million. There's some additional roadway improvement costs we can go over in a minute that are about $737,000. That's the estimate. So the current project cost estimate is $3.309 million.
Can we deal with that issue back there?
We're dealing with it.
Yeah, she's already on it.
We just need him to move away from the door. We'll be fine.
Thank you.
No, we can't close it.
He was waiting for a certain time.
We can't close it.
Okay, back on board? So I think I got that. The total project estimate for this is 3.3. The sewer portion is 2.57. Funding for the project, the sewer work is funded through the cap fees. The city has budgeted 2.748 million. The estimated cost is 2.572 million, so we are looking good at that point for once. It happens. That was the good news. Roadway work. The roadway work is fundable through circulation impact fees. The city does not have impact fees budgeted for this project in this fiscal year. However, we have $600,000 budgeted for two projects that cannot be completed this year. We had hoped that we would get a grant for the construction of the Honeysuckle Ramsey Roundabout. That grant we did not get. We had money budgeted for that. And also we have money budgeted in the circulation impact fees for right-of-way purchase on Hayden and Ramsey Roundabout. That will not be at the point of design to be able to expend those monies in this fiscal year. So we do have the availability by reallocation of $600,000 against that 737. We're also taking a portion of these roadway elements out of the project. We're estimating it's going to be about $150,000. So we should be able to fund this portion. Now you're going to ask me, what is the roadway elements? And so, one more point. This project will enter into a joint funding agreement with, this project is one of the projects that is part of the H6 joint funding agreement that we talked in a recent council meeting that will help be funded by developers as well. So, why is the roadway elements, why are it part of the project? We're going to be tearing up the entire road to put this sewer in. It's a 27-inch sewer pipe. It's 15 feet deep. By the time we get done, there won't be much left of Ramsey Road from Dakota to Wyoming. We can put the sewer pipe's going to go down the middle of the road. We could put the road directly over top of that. We could take it and put it out there, and we would have shoulders and shoulders, or we can shift the road 4 feet east, leave the center of the road where it's at, but we build it offset because in the future it's going to be 40 foot wide. In doing so, we can fix some problems that didn't get taken care of during development. There's a number on the east side of the road, there are from Moon Ridge all the way to Lacey, all the right-of-way is there. All the improvements have been done. All we need to do is add some curb and correct some of the sidewalk and swale areas. And we will have half of our roadway section to the city standard and to the city's typical section. We will not be able to ever do that as cheaply again. We will not be able to have a whole set road. If we built it down the center, we would have to come back and widen. We would have cut lines. We'd have joints that don't hold up over life. The water drainage wouldn't be as good. There's a number of reasons this is really a great thing. The other side of the road, the west side, is relatively undeveloped. A lot of it's airport property. That's going to happen at some point. At that point, we would be able to receive right-of-way, probably receive the right-of-way dedication as part of the development, and also get the roadway widening done as part of that development. And then that section of road is done, and we have a huge section of road from the city that would be completed with just a small amount of funds out of the city's pocket today. And that's why the project was put together in that manner. So that is really it in a nutshell, but the reason I need to get to bid is because, folks, it's already middle of March. And if we want to get this project going and get in decent bids, we're already probably 3 or 4 weeks later, and we'd like maybe even 3 or 4 months to be a reality.
Yeah, thank you. You make me nervous, terms like should be available. When you're talking about the shifting of funding and stuff like that.
It's available.
Well, you went back at one point, you said we're gonna get 600 from here and 100-ish from here.
But we're going to reduce the project cost by
I know,
150.
I know, and hopefully everything works great, but
I don't,
what happens if we end up short $50,000 to $100,000?
and I get to come back, and you guys need to tell me how to solve this, how you'd like me, I'll come back with solutions or suggestions, and you'll tell me which ones you like.
You're basically saying that barring unforeseen, unusual, freaky events, the shifting around as you showed, this will be fully funded without having to come back and say, well, guys, you know, inflation and blah, 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 blah.
I cannot guarantee it being this late in the season bidding it, but
Yeah, what if we get a super high bid?
we're going to get the low bid. And I don't know how high it'll be, Ed.
I can get myself an excavator and a compactor.
I can't predict that any better than the next person, unfortunately.
So if it bids higher than what we've estimated for and we want to build it, we'd be back to you with that funding source on how we would pay the difference. And there's really two parts. One is the sewer part, one is the road, which are paid under two different funds. And we would be looking at not only our projects that we have slated for construction this year, as mentioned, that we would be allocating or moving those funds from to, we'd also be looking at our potential reserve funds to help pay that gap, because the reality is the cost to build this now is going to be significantly cheaper than it would be to break it apart. So that's the point of the ask tonight, is to simply look at what we realistically can get done with what we've already budgeted, that we already have money for, and reappropriating that at a future council.
Or just pay for the sewer and leave it gravel, what we can't pay for. No, not quite?
Gravel roads are great, they just don't hold up as long.
Yeah.
They're expensive to maintain.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just looking for council support or actually direction to go ahead and take this out to bid.
Is this the last slide?
Huh?
Is this the last slide?
I'm done. I told you I was going to make it really quick.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to motion that we authorize a bid for the Ramsey Gravity Sewer Phase 2 Dakota to Wyoming project.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, we did move all the business to the next meeting. Is there anything on the report, city administrator or calendar
I'm
review?
happy to report that I gave you my report ahead of time.
And then as
have any
far as
questions?
the calendar review, do we have any upcoming meetings?
The calendar has been provided to you. I don't have it in front of me, sorry. I don't know.
You're going to have to help me connect to that thing, so I'm still stuck. But
The calendar?
yeah, the one online, the Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, no, that's.
So I believe our next meeting, our next regular meeting is the 26th, and I believe that we've, special meeting, joint workshop, whatever we want to call it, on the 18th. I believe we have support from that from council, yes?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask, is that could be publicly advertised, that workshop?
Yes, it's normal for us to.
By what do you mean publicly?
Well, what I mean is
It'll
the
be
public will be notified so they can know.
It'll be noticed through our normal.
Okay, great, thank you.
We're not putting it in the paper, I guess is what.
Well, I went and looked on the schedule a couple days ago, I didn't see it yet, that's
It's
why.
not going to be in the legal section is what I'm getting at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, I'm not able to attend that one.
Oh, bummer.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. And are there any roundtable discussion items tonight? I'm hearing none. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we need a second?
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.
And you guys deserve a...